Hello, everyone. Welcome to the roundtable on President Rodrigo Duterte's migration policy. I have a question. Who here knows someone who is an overseas Filipino worker? Can you raise your hands? Sinong may kilala na nag-migrate to go to the greener pastures? Ako din. I know someone. Almost everyone knows here somebody who is an overseas Filipino worker. Well, just to share, my dad himself was an overseas Filipino worker. Umuwi lang siya kasi pagod na siyang magtrabaho at kumayod sa bansang malayo sa pamilya niya. But not everyone has that option. So today, we ask, more than a year after President Rodrigo Duterte's term in office, what has he done to stay true to his promises he made before the OFWs? So, Rappler, together with the Center for Migrant Advocacy and the Working Group on Migration from the Department of Political Science in Ateneo de Manila University, hopes to address this question today. To give us an overview of the country's migration policy, I'll hand over the mic to the co-convener of the Working Group on Migration in the Department of Political Science in Ateneo de Manila University. She's also the member of the Board of Trustees in CMA, and she's my former professor actually, Ma'am Carmel Abaw.
Thank you, Aika. My task today is, good afternoon everyone, maayong hapon sa tanan. My task today is to give the big picture in 10 minutes. So medyo mahirap, but I think it's doable given that I think everyone in the room and everyone who's listening in actually already knows the big picture. So my task is really just to present some starting points, no, for this roundtable discussion. So my first, next slide please. My first starting point is that, of course, labor migration is not new. It is a global, massive, and enduring phenomenon. There are now 224 million international migrants. These are 2013 figures, and of these, you have 150 million who migrate for work. No? A little more than half are men, and wait, back to the first slide, please. Yeah, global migration. So more than 50% are men and 44% are women. Okay. In the case of the Philippines, there are 200, next slide, 2.4 million OFWs. In our case, there are more women than male OFWs. So 51% are female and 48.9% are male. And they're very young. No? You can see on the right side of that pie, under age group, more than 50% are actually from the ages of 15 to 34. So they're really at the prime of their productive years. No? Where do they work? 33% are laborers and unskilled workers. And the next highest would be 17.6% are service workers, no, and shop and market sales workers. Where do they go? More than 80% are in Asia, particularly in the Middle East. In fact, more than 50% are in the Middle East. So if you look at this, just these slides, it already shows the picture of who we are dealing with when we're talking about migration policy. These are mostly young women, okay, and they're in jobs where it's very hard, usually very difficult to negotiate with employers by themselves, and also in countries where, again, it's very difficult to negotiate with employers and with government. So I think we see here already the level of vulnerability, no, of our OFWs. Okay. Another starting point, next slide, please. Drivers of migration vary across countries, but in the Philippine context, the lack of job opportunities is a major driver. Next slide. There are a lot of these are just push factors, no? So people leave because of food insecurity, poverty, lack of job opportunities, natural disasters, and of course, wala pa dyan yung armed conflict and wars. And then there are also pull factors. Migration is really, it's really a demand also. So it's part of the global labor market. No, it's actually a reform of the global labor market. So even undocumented workers, for example, are a result of a demand. In our case, it looks like one of the biggest push factors will be our jobs problem. If you look here, our unemployment problem is not very high. And in fact, more than 90% of Filipinos are employed, in the labor force are employed. But if you look at the problem, you have 7.1 million are underemployed. So together, that means around 10 million are either seeking for work or already have work but still need work. No? And of the employed, I think we also know that a lot of them are also contractuals. Well, there are estimates that at least 30% do non-standard or contractual work. So a lot of people, meron din naman trabaho sa atin, pero syempre usapin din nung sweldo. No? So they really leave also because of that reason. Okay. Another starting point is, of course, labor migration has benefits and costs. Well, top benefit, of course, are the remittances. To date, well, this is 2015. It has reached 25 billion US dollars. Next slide, please. But the question really is it healthy for our economy, or any economy for that matter, no, to be heavily reliant on OFW remittances? If you see this slide, our foreign direct investment, which is supposed to have more direct impact in terms of stimulating our domestic economy, is only 5.6 billion, while foreign remittances are 25.6 billion. And we know that if something happens to the jobs of OFWs, then we can also lose these 25 billion US dollars. Okay? Migration, of course, helps families. We all know that it's a safety net for a lot of people, but we also know that it breaks families. Okay? In fact, this is the paradox of migration. To be able to save your family, you have to leave your family. And this estimate of 4.6 million, there are children of OFWs are left behind and are at risk of losing parental care. This is actually, these are actually figures from Scalabrini, the NGO Scalabrini, and I think Anak Migrante, but this was cited by the DOJ. Wait lang. I just want to say, recently, President Duterte has also said that at least 25% of OFW children are drug addicts. I don't know what the basis is, but I'm sure that will be part of our examination today. Next slide. Migration could actually be empowering also for women, especially for women. So we've heard of success stories of women really increasing their incomes, and also it helps a lot in increasing the level of confidence in women in themselves. No? But we know that the migration story is really also about exploitation. So it has proven to be exploitative, especially of women. We know the Mary Jane Veloso case. We know about the rape cases. We know about trafficking, etc. Next slide, please. Okay, migration is not new, and we have actually developed already infrastructure to manage it. So we have the DFA, the DOLE, the OWA, the POEA. We also have the labor committees, the migrant affairs committees in our legislative branch. So in a sense, we have a lot of experience. And in fact, if you go to conferences abroad, they would always say, "Uy, Pilipinas, model yan ng migration." Okay? Also because of the infrastructure suggests experience, no, in dealing with migration issues. But despite this wealth of experiences, I think we still need to ask these questions, which are very basic questions. What is the best way to protect OFWs and guarantee their rights? What policies and practices need to be continued, changed, and stopped? And I can think of at least 4 reasons why we need to ask the same questions. The first reason is because migration was supposed to be just temporary. So what does it mean when migration, despite the rhetoric of a lot of governments, that migration will stop, it actually has not even slowed down. It has increased. You see there, since the 1970s when it was started, during the Marcos dictatorship, you have 370,000, and now it is, at the end of the term of the Aquino government, it was 2.4 million. So this is a point of discussion. What would be our indicator of success for the Duterte government? Do we want that number to go down, no? In the next five years, okay? Another reason to talk about these questions is because we have a new president who won with a very massive OFW support. So while all citizens can make claims on government, I think OFWs have every right to make claims, no? Because they really lent their support to make this presidency happen. These are the votes. We all know this. It's not quite big, the base. Only 400,000 out of 2.4 went out to vote. But in all the places, these are the top destination countries, President Duterte won overwhelmingly, no? Okay. Another reason is because President Duterte himself made several promises. And medyo mabibigat yung promises niya, including, for example, in about 10 years, hindi na kayo lalabas, mag-intay-intay lang kayo konti, aayusin ko yung ekonomiya, at may opportunity for you to work here. And also in the recent SONA, he said, I ordered the increase of our assistance for the OFW from 400 million to more than 1 billion. So it would be interesting also to ask, for example, where is the 1 billion going? Okay? And perhaps we can also suggest, saan ba dapat, kung may 1 billion, saan dapat ito napupunta? The last reason that I see, I think it's a very important reason, no? Because we live in dangerous times here and abroad. So today it's very difficult to tell a Filipino, wag ka na mag-Lebanon, wag ka na mag-Syria kasi magulo doon. Kasi pwede ka rin talaga mamatay dito. So it's sort of a double whammy for OFWs. So there's already precarity of work, but there's really possible loss of lives also. The families we have heard of the drug-related killings, no? And of course, you go to the US, there's a crackdown on undocumented workers. You go to Europe, there's Brexit. You go to Qatar, there's a lot of conflict everywhere, and actually there's a rising trend really of anti-immigration, anti-immigrant sentiment. No? So they don't want migrants. And of course, here at home, I have to mention also the war in Marawi and martial law in Mindanao. Are we to expect more of them to migrate to escape the war? So I know these are very controversial issues, but I think a discussion on migration, we cannot help but talk about these issues. No? Okay, so I think we need to focus on specifics. We need to address and we need to ask, how do we protect OFWs in the entire migration cycle? So there are problems before they leave, once they're there, and when they come back. And I guess when you're talking about migration policy, perhaps each problem also necessitates really a particular solution. No? So it's really quite complex as well. So we need to ask, next slide, please. How do we ensure safety? Next slide, please. How do we ensure safety of OFWs? As I said, this is safety in terms of work, and also safety in physical safety, no? And safety in terms of lives, no? Of both OFWs and OFW families. How do we address rights issues? Because most of the time, it's always governments that decide what rights people have. So our rights here are not necessarily recognized in countries of destination. We also need to address structural issues. As I said, migration is part of, the big picture is really the global the global political economy. So we need also to look into our relationships, for example, with other countries. We have to look at the so many conflicts, even in our own region in Southeast Asia. Okay. And next slide, please. And we also need to ask, well, of course, we need to ask what President Duterte will do in the next 5 years, what our institutions will do. I think what I just want to say is that I think it's very good that we have a very supportive president, no? Supportive of OFW concerns. But at the end of the day, it's never really just the president. So the president can probably say, okay, in 10 years, you don't need to leave. But even if you want it, it might not happen because there are real constraints. And so this is where the institutions come in, and this is also where we are going to come into the picture. So this is my last slide. Next slide, please. So I think to protect OFWs within the current context, we really need everyone on board. So we need government, we need non-government organizations, we need civil society, we need trade unions, we need the academe. Of course, we need media. But again, just to close, maybe I just want to say that everyone has to be on board, but ultimately it's also really the voices of the OFWs that will matter the most. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Melay, for that presentation. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to OFW Rights. I'm Ana Santos. I'm a journalist who covers labor migration issues for Rappler, covering the Middle East and Europe. I'm happy to welcome our guests this afternoon. If I may introduce all of you, please. On my right, I have Attorney Raul Dado, who is Executive Director of the Migrant Workers Affairs Department of the DFA, or the Department of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you.
And then we have Lev Alcantara, who is the Director of the POEA, or the Philippine Overseas Employment Agency.
Right.
Attorney Hans Kaktak, who is now the Administrator of the OWA, or the Overseas Worker Welfare Association. Administration. Ms. Ellen Sana, Executive Director of a Center for Migrant Advocacy, and Ms. Mean Villalba, who is Executive Director of Unlad Kabayan. Unlad Kabayan is an NGO that helps our OFWs reintegrate through social enterprise. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Salamat.
So we're here to discuss the Duterte administration's long-term and short-term proposals to protect our overseas workers and guarantee their rights. To go through this discussion this afternoon, we have 4 topics. Okay, that's streamlining of government services, and then the on-site protection. So that's protecting or keeping our OFWs safe while they are abroad. And then we also have welfare benefits. So how do we take care of them when they're ready to come home? And finally, long-term solutions to address the problems that drive labor migration. And for those of you who are with us and viewing this program, please feel free to tweet us at OFW Rights using that hashtag to send in your questions. Okay. So if we have 4 topics for today, it's a little weird to facilitate this discussion. We're going to follow the migration path, starting with pre-deployment, and then when they leave and when they come back home. I'm going to jump right in there. Dun muna tayo sa pre-deployment. The Duterte government has made several commitments to improve the streamlining of our services. So I guess we can go to Lev to start off with. Give us an overview of the achievements and the progress that we've made in terms of these commitments.
Thank you, Anna. For starters, of course, at the latter part of 2016, under the Duterte leadership, the POEA has already come up with the 2016 revised rules and regulations that governs the deployment of land-based workers, and another one for sea-based workers. 2 sets of rules. And those 2 sets of rules actually puts in place the processes as well as the institutional arrangements for proper deployment and collection of correct labor market information for all of our OFWs. And as you have defined earlier in the migration cycle that we use as framework for service and program delivery, the rules already embody pre-deployment, on-site, as well as return services for POEA specifically. And in terms of very concrete accomplishment in the first year, I think 2 years, 2 weeks immediately after the first
Yeah.
SONA, President Duterte ordered in the SONA itself that he doesn't like long queues for our OFWs in any of the government offices. So one-stop service centers for OFWs were established, and the very first biggest one-stop service center for OFWs was the POEA Ortigas office itself. And from there till now, we already have 17 OSCOs all over the country, which seeks to cater to the needs, pre-deployment needs, documentation needs of our OFWs. So NBI, DFA, SSS, even your NSO, Philippine Statistical Authority needs are already in one place. So of course, earlier in this year, there's also a signing of a bilateral labor agreement for our OFWs bound for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and a lot of cooperation areas that extends the powers of our government through bilateral cooperation with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has been enhanced from pre-departure to on-site and until the return of our workers.
Okay.
And one other thing I think that would be appreciated by our publics is the balik manggagawa exemption of our balik manggagawa and the facilitation of filing for an OEC certificates through the BM Online facility. It's as easy as creating a Facebook page, and after you have created the account, and if you are a returning worker, returning to the same employer, same job site, you'll be exempted to get your OEC. You just print out your exemption certificate from the said facility.
Lev, I'm
So-
glad you mentioned the OEC because when we posted about this forum today, there were so many questions coming in from our viewers. A lot of them who are OFWs asking to eliminate the OEC.
Yes.
They're really bothered by it, the process behind it. They don't see kung ano daw yung silbi nito. Thank you for giving us that overview. Ms. Alan, I'm going to go to you now. During the first 100 days, the labor groups, CMA and Migrante included, gave a very good grade to the Duterte administration. Oh, sorry, Migrante. Okay, Migrante. That was Migrante. They're not here today. But in general, for the first 100 days, there was a good review of the initiatives that were undertaken. Where are we now, more than a year after? We can also give our overview from the side of the workers. And please go into the OEC, which a lot of our OFWs are waiting to hear about.
Okay, thank you. I think we heard also from the presentation of Ms. Melay, the big picture, na meron talagang malaking commitment ang presidente sa ating mga OFWs. This was affirmed by Direct Lev. Ano yung mga immediate na actions na ginawa ng administration na to, and we definitely agree and we welcome all those developments. In fact, I would add na halimbawa, ang isa pang bago yung Passport Act ay napasa na. So 10 years na po ang validity ng ating pasaporte. Pagkatapos ay, syempre, yung meron tayong OWA Act, meron tayong yung revised rules and regulations, at klaro talaga sa Pangulo. At yun, I think it really meant a lot yung pag-ikot ng Pangulo na nakikipag-meeting talaga siya sa mga OFW. So for the here and now in the short term, I think he still enjoys the trust and confidence of the OFWs, and we would agree with that. Kaya lamang, if I may add, meron lang ilang mga disturbing na developments.
Okay.
Very recent developments. For example, yung issue ng nabanggit ni Lev, yung kaka-approve pa lang ng POA ng revised rules and regulations for land-based. Ito yung pinakang nag-guide paano yung process ng deployment, recruitment, and all that. Kaya lang very recently, meron silang attempt, yung board mismo ng POA, to revise some of the provisions of these revised rules na ang haba-habang taon naming pinagbunuan at pinagdiskusyonan. At ang isang disturbing doon ay in reference ito doon sa foreign employment agencies and foreign employers na nire-relax. Kasi the explanation ay they find it restrictive. So, disturbing yun. Kasi parang ang punto de vista ng nakalagay doon ay punto de vista ng employers and foreign for that matter, foreign recruitment agency. Na palagi mong concern. Kasi ang una mong issue doon, ano ba yung kaya mong powers para mapanghawakan mo na makokontrol mo, mariregulate yung mga entities na nasa labas. And ang context noon, at narito, nabalita to sa pahayagan, ay to give way for this increasing demand for our Filipino domestic workers. Which again is, it's a market, but look, sino yung ating ipapadalang muli? So, yun yung isang rationale for the revision of the rules. Na yung mga proseso, yung cutting, the red tape and all that are all very welcome, but this is the longer term direction that we are heading to. Hindi namin alam, at in fact, we didn't know about that because the governing board resolution was dated July, end of July, and it's not towards the end of, September 1 na ngayon. So, medyo ito yung malaking issue na gusto nating itanong sa POEA at saka sa ating DOLE. Kasi ang head ng governing board ng DOLE is si Secretary Bello. Which brings me to the other point na it's more than 1 year sa ni Pangulong Duterte, very important yung papel ng POEA as the frontline agency. Diyan nagsisimula ang pag-aayos ng pag-deploy, pag-recruit. And until now, I will raise it as an issue, wala tayong administrator. Okay sana na, siguro kung klaro sino ba talaga yung in charge, mahalaga yon. I think it matters. Even if, for example, Direct Lev is very efficient in his work, tayong mga Pilipino, ang culture natin, we look up ano ba ang magiging direction natin.
Correct.
We've been observing ilang beses na yung pagpapalit-palit ng OIC. At mahalaga yon na dapat mapirme. Whether you have an administrator or you have a USEC in the DOLE to take care of the POE affairs, it's important na klaro at maging pirme. Kasi you have all these developments na nag-unfold. You have this big market na sinasabi for domestic in the Middle East and more recently in China.
Yes.
Na ang ina-anticipate 100,000 foreign workers na nakakaba kasi parang dami-dami na kayang tao sa China, kulang pa sila ng manggagawa. And you are talking actually of domestic workers.
Yes.
So medyo malaking issue to na nakakabahala sa atin. So kaya biglang na-offset yung very good na grade. Kasi parang, teka muna, aalis kami ng aalis, teka muna, paano yung anong protection?
Pastor Lev, let's go into that. Would you like to answer that concern raised by Alan on this new issue, this policy?
That's, I think, the beauty of policy making in the Department of Labor and Employment, as well as its attached agencies. All of the policies that are being contemplated on are being done in a tripartite body. The governing board that Ms. Ellen is mentioning is also tripartite in composition. It has representatives from workers, it has representatives from employers, representatives from private recruitment agencies, as well as seafarers sector. So I think what she is pertaining to is Governing Board Resolution number 3, series of 2017. This is very recent, and this is one that expands the accreditation of foreign principals. And I think part of the contemplation of coming out with a revision to the rules is to increase the ability of our foreign principals to absorb as much workers as they can for our Filipino workers. But of course, this is counter-checked by several other safety procedures that are in place in our legal framework. For example, of course, the standard employment contract of a worker that is deployed to any employer is still there. The accountability of the private recruitment agency that is based in the Philippines is also there still. So, and in it by itself, the foreign principal is not scot-free when he is accredited to the POEA. The foreign principal is jointly and severally liable when it comes to taking care of the OFW that principal is going to employ. So hindi siya libre kaagad-agad. Once accredited, he's accredited for life. It doesn't work that way. They can lose their accreditation anytime that that any misdeed is done on the part of the worker that they employ.
How is this an improvement over our existing policies already on labor migration?
Well, some foreign placement agencies have the capacity to absorb more workers than the others. And this does not apply to all of the foreign employers that are out there. So they would have to show certain levels of capacity for them to be able to have multiple accreditations. And they would have to show a track record first of how they took care of their previous deployments. So it's not as easy as it looks. So there are still checks and balances in the process. It's an improvement of sorts to the policy that we have because it makes it gives leeway for the private recruitment agency to choose which employer is better. So in that sense, if you look at it that way, there's an improvement in the policy.
What about for the worker? I hear a lot of, for the recruitment agency, for the foreign principal, but where is the worker in that framework?
The worker in that framework, of course, is the interface of the worker is when he or she applies to a private recruitment agency here, based in the Philippines. And the private recruitment agency is the authorized representative of the foreign placement agency or the foreign principal. At first instance, the interface would be between the private recruitment agency and the worker. So.
But in terms of protections, there's inherent, we talked about, Ms. Melay also brought this up, that in the pre-deployment process, the main problems are, and recurring, the excessive recruitment fees that are charged, for example, by lending agencies. And another recurring problem with that respect is that sino po ba talaga yung may oversight on lending agencies? Clear on recruitment under POEA, but for lending agencies, there doesn't seem to be someone who's taking a stronghold in accountability. Lalo na po yung from lending to collection agencies. We've had reports of migrant workers experiencing a lot of harassment when these collection agencies ask them to pay. I think I'm being kind when I say ask. They're being coerced, they're being intimidated when they need to make payments. And there's no also government body oversight on collection agencies. Dev?
Good question. Lending agencies is obviously not within the regulatory framework that POEA is mandated to oversee. But at the development stage, there's actually a proposal for us to initiate a research in conjunction with Securities and Exchange Commission to take a look at lending establishments that cater to OFW. So it's in the works, and whatever gaps in the policies as well as in the as well as in practices are identified out of that research would most probably be served to our policymakers.
Yes, and I call on the other panelists, please join in.
Yeah.
Helen.
Maybe just, very briefly lang doon sa Governing Board Resolution number 3 na binanggit ni Direk Lev. Hindi nakapirma doon ang women representative. So hindi ko alam kung dahil hindi na siya kamiyembro or whatever. Pero just for the record, hindi nakapirma ang women representative doon sa Governing Board Resolution na yon. Now, on the issue of lending agency, malaking issue din to sa amin, particularly in the case of our migrant domestic workers. Kasi under the HSW Policy Reform Package, 0 placement fee sila. That is good. Ang nangyari namang biglang developments, biglang may requirement, of course, kailangan ikaw ay very skilled, at least yung elementary skills ay meron ka, kailangan mo ng certification. Para ka magkaroon ng certification, kailangan mong i-assess. At kung hindi ka makapasa sa assessment, then you will have to undergo training. Dito ngayon ang nagrereklamo yung mga tao na wala nga kaming placement fee na hinihingi, bigla namang meron kaming training fees na kailangang bayaran. So ito yung isang paraan na iniikutan nila yung patakaran ng POEA. And as Direk Lev correctly said, hindi yun kanilang mandato, yung pag-regulate ng training. TESDA yung in charge sa training. But when we raise the matter of the training fees, ang sabi ng TESDA, hindi rin silang in charge doon. Ni-raise din namin yun sa POA at that time, hindi rin daw sila yung in charge doon. So, yun yung isang dilemma dyan, okay? Yung training yan for skills, training yan for language, yan yung isang malaking issue na that the workers have to pay a lot for. Ang, uutang ka, yan yung kaya nagkakaroon ng issue ng lending agencies. Kasi one stop, nauna nang one stop ang mga ahensya na sasabihin ng worker, wala ko akong perang pambayad ng tuition para sa training. Ay, hindi bali, dito kita i-refer sa lending agency with usurious rates, okay? Interest rates. Malaking problema yan for the migrant domestic and also, of course, for those who are working in Taiwan. Yung meron po tayong batas dyan, pero apparently walang ngipin. So, nandun tayo sa RA 10022, meron doong prohibited act. You cannot charge higher than 8% per annum sa interest. At yun, sana magkaroon talaga ng maayos na resolution. Attempt ng partners namin sa Taiwan na gamitin yung ating batas dahil doon sa sandamakmak na complainants natin doon sa Taiwan for excessive fee collection. Pero yun talaga yung medyo blind spot. Kasi when we go to POA to complain, nakarelate sila, pero ang concern kasi nila ay ahensya, not these lending agencies, not these training institutions.
So let's table that. Yes, sir.
Basically, it's a good question you have. No? Sino bang may jurisdiction on lending agencies per se? I think the Department of Foreign Affairs might want to take a look at this thing. Precisely because our office is on legal assistance for migrant workers, which means from the beginning until the end. So siguro, we'd like to see these cases, particularly kung sino may complainants, which are the agencies, and get to the bottom of that. We have lawyers as well. We can tap at least to get the first cases going.
Yeah. Thank you, Attorney Dado, because I think when we brought this up also with the SEC, who is supposed to be overseeing lending agencies, they also don't have the concrete jurisdiction to rein them in. So what I see is here, we have laws. Meron na tayong nasagot na laws to protect our workers. Zero placement fee for 2 segments, or household service workers and seafarers. Pero meron na way na naiikutan yun. No? Wala ngang recruitment fee, pero magcha-charge ka ng language training, ng training. And there is no concrete agency, government agency also overseeing that. So meron tayong law, pero meron tayong konti implementation na problem. At nabanggit nyo, Ms. E, na yung lending agencies natin, because they borrow so much, and then they go abroad, eto na tayo, on-site tayo, nakaalis na tayo, we're hoping for a job that pays us more, but we have a huge loan to repay. Dito na tayo sa on-site.
I think dun sa training fees, the TESDA can help out in terms of benchmarking. Maring wala silang parang legal rate or level, but they could at least help in terms of benchmarking what is the market rate in terms of yung NC2 for household workers, for domestic workers. Pagkaalala ko, tumatakbo ng mga 3,000 to 4,000 pesos yan or something like that. So, pagka lumagpas sa 3,000 to 4,000 pesos yung training fee, ay pwede na tayong, kumbaga pwede na magkaroon ng investigation that can be a case that can be filed at the POEA, and then the POEA can conduct its investigation. When I was with the POEA, we had those test cases. So hopefully mapagpatuloy in terms of yung may mga maparusahan ng mga recruitment agencies na gano'n ang modus.
Actually, the feedback also from a lot of workers is that our government framework is complaints-based. So, kung walang magrereklamo, parang kailangan pa may magreklamo para mag-trigger ng investigation. The gentleman here from the...
Sa
maybe we can respond
POEA,
to
the
that.
POEA itself can file the case. Yung tinatawag na motu proprio cases.
On lending
So that
agencies.
once the POEA gets word of a particular case, for instance, during his time in Kuwait, then Conjen Dado would send me a letter about this particular case. Once I get that letter, or got that letter from Conjen Dado, we already institute an investigation. Yun nga, on our own initiative, we can file a case.
That's right. So in our case, putting verbal, for example, somebody complains to us verbally na merong ganyang problema, we can start an investigation. Miski hindi sworn yung complaint. In other words, hindi it's not a requisite that it's a sworn statement talaga.
I guess where the workers are just coming from is yung iba kasi yung pag-feeling nila ng agencies, lending agencies, etc. that there's a very strong government that is watching them. they're going to be very careful about violating rules and about doing anything that's going to be not beneficial to our OFWs, rather than kailangan pa may magreklamo.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's just on that point. Yes, Miss Mian.
Lalo na sa mga seafarers, ang dami nilang nilalabas na reklamo on the training. Kasi ang tanong nila is, are all these training requirements talagang required ba? Kasi merong mga training na or further study pa na gagawin nila bago sila makasakay sa next time.
Feedback.
Na ang nangyayari, every time na na sumasakay sila, o bumababa sila tapos sasakay ulit, meron na naman silang dadaan ng training at magbabayad sila. So, yun nga ang sabi namin, mas maigi nga mag-save kayo para pagdating nyo dito at merong training, nakahanda kayo, yun na lang ang pwedeng mangyari dyan. Otherwise, hindi kayo makakasakay ulit. Pero yun nga ang kanilang reklamo. Ito ba ay mga required talaga ng mga training? Who regulates the kind of, the different trainings required talaga? And is there a regulation of how much they should pay for this training?
Parang standardization po, no, of required trainings for each job. Is there such a thing that you have?
Standardization is the correct word, Miss Anna. And it's not just local standards, it's international standards. When we speak about seafarers, hindi po yung local na standards ang pinapatupad dyan. It's an international standards. Whether you're a Bangladeshi seafarer or a Filipino seafarer, iisa yung standard ng training mo. And these trainings are evidenced by certifications on several skills for a seafarer. So, and there are career paths for seafarers. So if you, for example, boarded an ocean vessel, an entry-level position, if you want to go higher into the career ladder of seafaring, you really need to undertake trainings. So it's true for all other occupations, I guess.
Yeah.
So especially one that has very rigid qualifications standards for workers. You haven't been asking Admin Kakdak. Actually, he has been administrator for POEA for quite a while.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah, and I keep looking at him for if
Me
what
too,
I'm saying
actually.
is correct. Yeah,
Like, can I just say, nasa seafarers, meron talagang mga upgrading courses that are required kasi nga yung international standards that Lev is talking about, yung tinatawag na STCW, yung Convention on Safekeeping Training, Safety and Training, watchkeeping, they really need to go through upgrading ever so often. However, tama si Ma'am na meron talaga mga cases reported na hindi naman kailangan na labas doon. And according to the Maritime Labor Convention, they are prohibited. I mean, anyone is prohibited from charging the seafarers for anything that is beyond that which is required. So, ang suggestion ko doon, once again, kailangan mag-report lang at i-document yung cases at i-report sa POA because the manning agent and the ship owner can be held liable for that.
Sir Hans, where would we catch them though, even before these problems happen, or I'm a seafarer and I don't know if I should pay for this training or not? Where would we be able to catch them with this proper information? Sa PIDOS po ba or paano ho ba? Is there an avenue where they can arm themselves with information prior to departing or taking on these trainings?
In the case of seafarers, there is a PIDOS facility or program that should actually be undertaken by the manning agent. The manning agents conduct the PIDOS program that is in line with the ship owners' needs or yung working conditions aboard ship. So yes, the short answer is yes. Doon dapat nalalaman nila yung information na yan.
Alright.
Siguro dagdag lang, in terms of information, kasi talagang heartbreaking yun eh. Pupunta yung mag-aplikante, yung seafarer, ang daming certificates. Sasabihin nung principal, di ba kailangan yun?
Ganyan
And he
kakapal
spends so
talaga.
much money. At saka oras na naghihiwalay sa kanya sa pamilya niya pag nagbabakasyon. Pero yun, yung isa kasing, at niraise namin yan in several occasions sa dialogue namin on the seafarers issues, yung mga kurso na dapat lamang na kinukuha nila, may listahan sila. At yan ay nakukuha ang isang ahensya na talagang in charge sa seafarers, particularly on the training, ay yung Marina. So yung kaya lang baka nagpe-face in pa lang yung Marina sa kanyang trabaho sa mga marino. Pero mahalaga na aggressive ang promotion na i-check ninyo po sa listahan ng STCW kung ano lang po ang necessary na training na kailangan nyo.
Ayan, may checklist
Oo,
pala. Alright.
yun.
Meron
Kasi ang nangyayari kasi dun sa mga seafarers is napaka-competitive, ano?
That's right.
Yeah.
Napakahaba ng pila nila sa luneta. Iilan lang naman ang nakukuha sa kanila. Lalo na ngayon, panahon na to na yung competition among nationalities ay
Yes.
matingkad din. Ngayon, ang ano nila is, napipilitan silang kumuha na lang nung nung kurso para lang makapasok. So,
Okay.
yun ay isang napaka-external, ano? Hindi naman yun yung sabihin mo, okay, pwede ka nang magreklamo nito. Pero kung ikaw ay seafarer, na sa tingin mo gusto mo ng competitive edge, kukuha ka na lang ng ganun. So, napaka-intrinsic ng problem.
Alright. Thank you, Ms. Maran. We need to go to the next phase of our OFW deployment, which is on-site protection. Okay? Ms. Ellen, Ms. Mahan, ano ba yung nakikita natin issues ng mga OFWs natin when they are outside of the country na? So, ang malakihan na din-deploy natin are low-skilled workers, and these are mostly women and working as domestic workers, and they're very vulnerable. So, ano po yung mga nakikita natin na issues on-site? And Attorney Dada will help us dissect those issues.
Okay.
Thank you.
From our end, syempre, legally speaking, while we have very good laws, I would say maganda naman yung ating mga batas, kasama yung mga programa at serbisyo. Paglabas mo ng Pilipinas, hindi na yan kikilalanin kasi nasa iba ka ng jurisdiction. So doon pa lang may problema na kagad na pwede kang maisip na, am I protected in the country of the nation na destination na pupuntahan ko? And for domestic workers, unfortunately, many countries still do not cover domestic workers sa labor and social laws nila. So yun kagad yung isang number one. Nandun ka kagad sa vulnerability, hirap mong ilaban kasi wala kang basihan na pagkukuhanan. Only very recently, nagkakaroon ng mga initiatives to enact a domestic workers law, parang specific to domestic workers, the latest of which is yung sa Qatar.
Yes.
Pero yun, kailangan pang tingnan kung how effectively it will be implemented. Pero concretely din, yung pagiging pakiramdam mo na nag-iisa ka, at usually in very hostile environment, ang talagang lalapitan mo lamang na pwedeng kilalanin ng countries of destination authorities ang ating embahada at konsulado. At problema yon kung halimbawang ang layo, Saudi, where we have the biggest number of OFWs, for example, 6 times bigger yan than the Philippines. Meron tayong embahada sa Riyadh, may konsulado tayo sa Jeddah, and that takes care of more than 1 million people.
Yes.
Merong problema sa mobility ang kababaihan natin, lalo na in public places. So na doon ang kahirapan ng, yun palang pag-access ng ating pagsusumbungan, problema na yon. Of course, it's another issue also kung how receptive, how sensitive are our people at the embassy, consulate, and labor offices. Na ako ba immediately mapapakinggan? Ako ba ay meron ba akong makikitang sa mata pa lang nila ay may empathy na at talagang mayroong may assurance na I will help you.
Okay.
So yun, ganun ka simple pa lang ay issue na yun sa akin.
Pero very basic po yun. No? And it's mostly in the Gulf where there's no domestic worker law. They're literally invisible from the labor code.
Exactly. It's wonderful that she mentioned Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
I was in Kuwait for almost 4 years as Consul General, and right there, doon na yung problems talaga. You have rape, sexual abuse every day, harassment. Basically, you have two approaches. First, yung high-level diplomatic negotiations for an agreement on labor and whatever, legal assistance or whatever. However, ang problema sa mga ganun situations, basically agreement ka na baka hindi ma-follow on the ground. So what we did in Kuwait, for example, was to have teams on the ground, just checking on employers, on houses, on all these women who are being abused, and to rescue them. Using our diplomatic immunity as consuls and congens and whatever, to get them out of that situation where they have this problem. And get lawyers to file cases. So yung aming office sa department is OMA, the Office of the Undersecretary for Migrant Workers Legal Assistance, is tasked with providing legal funds for lawyers abroad to file cases in the different jurisdictions, especially in the Middle East. In Saudi Arabia, yes, I was there 2 weeks ago. On the night I arrived,
Yeah.
meron na rin kagad dun sa in a places far away from Riyadh, like 10 hours. And apparently, the team in Riyadh could not really go there quick enough because, distance, the timing, and everything. And what we've done now is to increase our funding for particularly Saudi Arabia para makapunta yung mga teams natin to these areas to rescue these women and to file cases in the different jurisdictions. So it's ongoing right now. We do indeed have a lot of things to do. Also with the attitude of the people in the embassy, for example, you're saying maybe hindi sila ganun ka receptive because they're tired or kulang sa tao. So we need to fund the hiring of a lot of local hires in the different embassies to man these teams to assist the Filipinos there.
Yun nga ang gusto namin tanungin din. We have so many, nakita kanina kung gaano kadami yung mga migrant workers natin. And they're all over the place. We always say in about 152 countries.
230 nung sa Reintegration Summit.
Oh, 230 countries.
And
States and
destinations.
economies.
Countries and destinations.
Economies, yung kasama yung mga Hong Kong, ganun,
Autonomous
Macau,
region.
ganyan. So, we have so many, they're so dispersed. And yet, yung capacity natin to respond sa kanilang pangangailangan is so limited. Ang parating sinasabi ng ating mga missions abroad is we are cash-strapped.
Cash-strapped, yeah.
So, ito lang ang magagawa natin. Kailan ba tayo magkakaroon? At the very least, yung gusto naming tingnan is mag-match man lang yung pinapadala sa pwede nating, kaya nating sagutin. Kasi ano yan accountabilities yan.
Meaning the people send the number of the
The number of
Yung number of
employees
people that
at the
we are
embassy
able to
versus
deploy,
the OFWs.
kaya ng gobyerno na panagutan yung kanilang kalagayan. Pero pag nandun ka na sa isang country na kung saan ang iyong embahada ay nandoon sa kabilang dulo ng mundo, ay talagang mahirap na.
For example,
Yun, ano?
we have, I think,
So,
almost 2 million in Saudi Arabia alone, no? Or 1 million plus of the police. We were there 2 weeks ago and we said, okay, we have teams in Saudi Arabia, for example, stationed in Kafji or all these far provinces from Riyadh or Jeddah. Meaning, meron tayong tao doon, we have local volunteers, we have consuls going around, we have teams with rescuers in vehicles, really practical stuff, and lawyers with them. And that was the thing that we mentioned to the incoming ambassador to Saudi Arabia of the Philippines, appointed by the president. We have the funding for this to be given in January of 2018 by the president. We mentioned kanina it's 1 billion.
Yeah, is that
plus.
part of the 1 billion?
And that's going to fund teams and lawyers and vehicles and rescuers to do this thing, considering the distance from
Yeah.
the main office.
Babalik lang po ako
And
because
that's
it's
also,
kind of redress. We're again talking about problems, addressing them. Pero if I may go back to preventing them even. And my question there is, nasa ibang bansa po tayo, nagpapadala po tayo ng mga manggagawa sa ibang bansa. Mga laws po nila yung masusunod. So how much power and negotiation do we really have in terms of protecting our OFWs once they're overseas?
That's a great question. Depends upon the person there on the ground. A lot of consuls are tough and brave and courageous. Some of them are, medyo laid back. I think we need to have leverage and have enough courage to go to the host government and demand rights for our workers. On the assumption that if hindi ma-treat ng mabuti ang workers natin, if they just move back to the Philippines, then the economy of that country would suffer. I mean, the king has a lot of Filipino workers in his palace. And he was saying that, he needs all these support on the basics of his life. So yung leverage natin would be, the labor officials would know more of the economics of our deployment. But in our case, yes, in terms of having enough people, we have the funding. It's a good question you asked, Ma'am. What happens now if on the side of the deployment, what is the role of the DFA? Aking daang, when I was there, it's like we were more of firefighters, responding to the crisis already. But yung philosophy of deployment is something that is quite beyond us, beyond the DFA in the sense that it's with the other departments to determine the deployment per se.
And I'll go to Sir Hans as OWA head.
Yeah.
Sa on-site protection po, how can we address
Yeah,
these concerns?
let me respond to what Ms. Maan was asking about kanina. Under the new OWA law, the OWA is supposed to come up with a new staffing reorganization plan after a management audit to be conducted. About 4 months ago, that management audit was accomplished, We commissioned the UP NCPAD, College of Public Administration and Governance, to do the study, the audit. And out of the audit, the OWA board reviewed the findings and approved a staffing reorganization plan. Kung lalagumin ko yung discussions sa board about the staffing reorganization plan, ganito. Sabi ni Sec Bello, tignan niyo yung pangalan ng OWA. Sabi niya, tinignan namin lahat. Ano yung unang letra sa pangalan ng OWA? O, overseas. Therefore, dapat damihan natin ang tao sa overseas. Ganun lang kasimple. No? Because that is our objective. If we want to bring OWA closer to the people, then we must be on the ground to prevent and to address concerns. So, ang naging desisyon ng OWA board was to increase the presence of the OWA from a current number of 106 to 500.
106 to
To
500.
500, okay?
In what country?
In all other countries, majority of them, meaning more than about 300, to be deployed in the Middle East, okay? Now, that's the good news. But we have to wait, because it's being bad news, but we have to wait until the good news is fully realized, because there are two other preconditions that must happen. One is DBM must approve the 500 positions, and number two, the host country must also approve the additional positions. It's a protocol diplomatic issue. So once we've cleared those two hurdles, we will now be able to deploy the necessary personnel. These days, the deficiency in the number of personnel are addressed, alam ni Congenito, through the sending of augmentation teams or rapid response teams.
Right.
So this year alone, Secretary Bello has sent around the maximum of 40 people, labas-pasok yan in the Middle East, to boost the presence of our overseas welfare offices at post. So we try our best na madagdagan ng tao doon. Tama yung sabi ni Conjen we're sensing these days, kumbaga kung magsaspot kami ng trend, one trend that we see is dumadami yung cases involving workers who are in far-flung areas. Abha, Haiil, and all these other places outside of Jeddah, outside of Riyadh, and most of the time 8 to 10 hours away. So we're finding, one big word these days is algorithm, and one of the things that we're sensing is that we must be able to predict and find ways to get to workers who need help in the far-flung areas especially. So, yan ang tama yung sabi ni Conjen, kailangan may tao kami sa labas ng Riyadh, sa labas ng Jeddah, para siguraduhin na matulungan yung tao nasa malalayong lugar. But more than that, dito pa lang sa POEA recruitment side, dapat aalamin na ng husto kung saan ipadadala yung worker. Kung padadala siya sa Abha or wherever else na malalayo, dapat meron ng necessary safeguards, yung kontrata at yung mga preconditions bago siya mapadala doon.
I-flag ko lang, kasi sa last naman meron tayong long-term solution. Pagdating sa on-site protection, naalala ko kasi, I think it was 2010, confirm ni Conjen kung tama yung recollection ko, we closed down 10 posts. Nagsara tayo ng 10 na embahada or konsulado kasi for right-sizing purposes or whatever. Pero yon, nagsara tayo. So, ibig sabihin, halimbawa, yung konsulado natin sa Barcelona, sinara natin despite the protest and appeal for reconsideration by our migrant workers, na mas marami ang nagpupunta sa Barcelona kaysa embahada natin sa Madrid. So, maraming mga gano'n na basta nagsara. So, yung sinasabi ni Admin Hans, that's very good. We welcome that. Kaya lang yun nga, ang lagi ba nating, ang question din kasi, babalik ka sa, ang lagi ba nating question ay dapat ay ima-match mo yung population mo doon. And ang laging lalabas, you have to put the post, you have to put OWA. At the same time, you're talking of 10% of our people, pero may 90 million pa tayong nasa Pilipinas. So I think from our end, ang gusto rin nating sabihin sa ating gobyerno, gusto nating i-treat yung ating mga workers fairly, pero hindi naman yung to the extent na, halimbawa, in terms of yung budget allocation mo, ano rin ang ibig sabihin doon? Ano din ang implication? At saka ano din ang implication sa trabaho ng foreign affairs? Mag-full time na ba siya? 90% ba ng oras niya is to take care of the migrants? So hindi ko yun alam na question. Pero that's something for us to think about very thoroughly, yung direction in terms of the direction. But the other point that I'd like to say is, yung usapin kasi when we say on-site, we always look to ourselves. And that's rightly so. Kaya lamang, masyado nating namamaliit, hindi natin nabibigyan ng pansin yung obligasyon din ng countries of destination. And this is, for example, where Executive Director Dado was saying na kami firefighters kami. Pero yung mas malaking picture na bago ka pa nag-iisip, when we conclude arrangements with countries of destination, dapat nare-realize at ina-accept ng countries of destination that they are equally responsible for them. Excuse me sa kanila, no? Kung wala ang migrant workers, matutuloy ba yung mga construction nila dyan sa Middle East? So these workers guarantee that the work goes uninterrupted. But then, ang ating tingin, parang sige, negotiate, basta tayo yung magpapadala. Dapat may ganong pagbabago ng narrative. Now we have to take to task equally those countries of destination. Even if we are saying, well, our workers do not have the jobs here. But it doesn't happen, the migration doesn't happen kung walang demand for those workers.
Actually, kung i-reimagine nga natin, we can turn around that demand and use it to our advantage. They demand our workers. There is a known preference for the Filipina as a nanny and as a domestic worker. These are actually points of leverage that we can capitalize on so we can get better protections and rights from the host government, which is what
And
you're pointing at.
We have, because we have a bilateral agreement with Saudi as far back as 2013. We have a bilateral agreement with Jordan. And in the coming weeks, there will be one in UAE. And also working on Qatar and Kuwait. May mga joint committees that are in place that carefully monitor targets and goals. Of course, there are still several areas of improvement. No? One area of improvement that needs to be done is a monitoring system to track our progress dun sa mga bilaterals natin. These things are being done. However, sa batas din natin, may mandate din tayo na magbigay ng protection kasi. In our Constitution, it says we should afford protection to labor, local or overseas. Hindi naman nakalagay doon, Saudi Arabia, please afford protection to our workers. That is true because sila ang host country. Pero under our Constitution, we are also duty-bound to protect. And right now, it's clear, no? From where I sit, we need more people on the ground. We need more people who can speak the language and the dialect and know Filipino culture and bridge the gap between what needs to be done to protect our workers at ano man yung pagkukulang ng host country. We also need to show the host country how to protect our workers, to boost their efforts. So it's a two-way street, tama yung sabi ni Ellen. But that doesn't mean we should rest on our laurels and say, be our guest, host country, kayo nang gumawa, we'll sit back and eat popcorn and watch you do it. You know,
Or
we
parang
have
utang na loob natin with
we have
getting
to
a
be
job for them.
proactive. Or else, the next case that comes about in Saudi or in Kuwait, sasabihin ni Ellen, ano ginagawa nyo? Diba? Ganun naman ang sasabihin ni Ellen kapag may nangyaring masama sa ibang bansa. So we have to be out there and be proactive and do our job.
Meron po tayong question from the audience. What to do when a household service worker's passport is still in the custody of the employer?
Good question. I'll answer that.
Secretary Dado.
You gotta go to the employer and demand it back. No, there's part of our laws provide that yung passport is the ownership of the Philippine government. Yung holder is only a possessor. No, so we go to the employer and say, give it back to us because we own it. I'm the congen, give it back to me. May mga employers na, tough. You gotta be tougher and gotta, just go to their door or whatever and sort of press on certain buttons and, shame them, whatever. No? So yung ganung concept, we started that in Kuwait. We got passports from the employers. I think we have encouraged our consuls to do that as well in other countries.
Okay.
And,
Lev,
and of course, qualified trafficking persons ang pagpopossess ng passport na hindi sa iyo. And that knowledge alone is very powerful for all of our OFWs leaving the country when they know this kind of information. And of course, these habilins that we give to our OFWs is part and parcel of our pre-departure orientation seminars. If they really take it to heart, then it's quite it's at their hands in using this kind of information when they are on site. And Ms. Anna, I'd also like to take advantage of the time. In terms of bilateral labor agreements, as Admin Kakdak has said, Bahrain is also in the works. And with the consistent, persistent dialogues that we have, I think we're also influencing, in some sorts, the culture as well as the policy of our countries of destination. When we continue to engage them at bilateral levels and regional levels, might interest you to note that we're a member of the Abu Dhabi Dialogue. It's a regional consultation process that involves countries of destinations, the Gulf specifically, and sending countries, labor sending countries. It's a dialogue process that takes place regularly, and through all of these dialogues, certain improvements, little by little, are being manifested in the way that policies are being done in countries of destination as well as sending countries. So yeah.
I'll go first to Maan.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to raise this. First, we really appreciate the efforts of our government and our missions abroad, because from our friends from Indonesia, halimbawa, they always say na, buti pa yung mga Pinoy na bibisita ng kanilang opisyal. Kami, hindi yata nila alam that we exist here in Saudi, or we are around here, or they have sent us here, yung ganon. So, it's really a laudable na na napapadalan ng pagbisita doon sa preso, nagmo-monitor and so on. Pero gusto ko lang i-raise yung isang kaso na hinahawakan namin, na tinawag ko na sa lahat ng mga opisina, yung case ni Mr. Charlemagne Seniedo. Si Mr. Seniedo, gusto ko lang tanungin to, magandang pagkakataon, I hope something comes out. Kasama siya doon sa hindi na mahanap nung pumutok yung nasunog yung isang oil rig.
Saan po?
Sa Saudi Arabia.
Kailan po?
This was last year, sometime mga August or September. So October nagsimula ng ang pamilya maghingi ng tulong. And in January nagkita kami ni Mrs. Seniedo, pumunta kami sa DFA ng Davao, nakausap namin yung nasa Saudi Arabia, at ang sabi ay yes, we're doing something about it. At punta kami sa OWA, hingi ng tulong, sabi ng OWA, hindi kami makabigay ng tulong sa inyo, dahil tumutulong kami lalo na doon sa mga namatay. Pero wala mang death certificate. The death certificate has to be issued by the host government, and it takes a process. Now, namatay na siya noong August or September. Hanggang ngayon, wala pang balita. So yung family, hindi nila alam magluluksa ba sila, what? No, it's so many years, so many months. Dinulog na namin ito din sa inyong opisina, attorney, na ito yung kaso. So, yung pamilya, gusto nilang malagay na sa ano ba ang pwedeng mangyari dito sa kasong
This is a
to?
good question. Apparently, the embassy in Riyadh, they're the ones sending this. Pag yung papers matagal, something is wrong with the process in terms of really pushing the host government to issue the proper documents. We have documentation cases which are complicated. But however, if there's a good lawyer there pushing the officials to do something, and then something happens. So ang gagawin po, I'll call Conjen in Riyadh and tell him, kasi batchmate yun, to have a legal team there para kalapagin yung host government. We had lawyers in the Middle East, for example, who were good at behind the scenes maneuvering with the judge or whoever. No? We need that kind of style in the Middle East just to get things moving. PR, scaring the police, for example, or the immigration officer or whoever. Na medyo out of the box. So I'm gonna call our teams in Riyadh to jumpstart this case. Apparently, nag-stall siya, so we have to move it.
Kasi after 1 year, hindi pa ma-declare na kung ano talaga siya. It's a psychological, psychosocial
That's really bad. We gotta do something
pressure
about
on the
it.
family.
Yes, yes.
Yes, Alan.
Just briefly on the confiscation of documents ng ating mga employers na kukumpiska. Sabi ang termino nila safekeeping. Pero yun nga, nabanggit na nung ating mga opisyalis na walang patakaranagan ng dapat. And in fact, maski yung mga countries of destination prohibit the confiscation. Yung sa Middle East
Saudi,
countries,
UAE,
Saudi, the Gulf
Qatar.
states, they prohibit. Meron niyang penalty. Ngayon, why does, easier said than done. Siyempre, yan, may legal basis ka na i-refuse. Kaya lang, again, babalik ka dun sa, ano yung laban mo sa employer mo. Yung mga domestic, yung mga those skilled, ang madalas na napokumpiska. Yung engineers natin, yung ibang mga semi-skilled, they keep their passports. Ang nakokolektahan talaga, ang nakukumpiskahan ay ang ating mga migrant domestic workers. So, ang kailangan, kaya babalik ako dun sa, kailangan din talaga, titingnan natin yung ating mga foreign employers na nag-hire ng domestic workers, paano sila magbabago ng mga mindset nila. Meron tayong magandang bilateral agreement on domestic workers protection with Saudi Arabia, but abuses continue to happen. So kailangan talagang magbabantay tayo para i-match yung ating policy ay effectively ino-observe talaga nila.
Can I say something about confiscation? I
Yeah.
agree. We need to speak loudly and clearly about our position against confiscation of documents. Kasi nga, nasa batas na yan ng maraming bansa. Kaya we need to push further. Dito sa Global Compact for Migration, yan ang isang minumungkahi namin. Simple lang, maglagay ng prohibition against confiscation of passports. Dito sa ASEAN document that hopefully will be passed by the leaders in November, there's something there about non-confiscation of passports within ASEAN, and that's very significant. Just a quick comment also on kay Ms. Yung sa death certificate, hindi ko alam kung sino nagsabi nun from OWA, pero isumbong niyo po sa akin at pagagalitan ko kasi sa ngayon, we've been thinking out of the box about that situation at hindi na kailangan ng death certificate. All it takes is somebody from Post, whether it's DFA or Polo or OWA, to tell us this OFW has passed away. Either I've seen it with my own eyes or I have been told by a significant source or dependable source. And then we process the benefits. And in fairness, even the private insurance companies pay the $10,000 to $15,000 benefit even without a death certificate. Basta makumbinsi namin sila through a communication from Post na yung tao ay sa kinasamaang palad ay yumao na.
Okay. Hans and Attorney Dado, I'd like to kind of reiterate that point kasi buti po yung OFW po natin, kalala po kayo at nandito po tayo sa forum na to at nabanggit niyo yung kanyang problema. I am sure this is not an isolated case. So can we just also, for our viewers and our OFWs who are listening today, ano po ang gagawin nila? Ano po yung process nun? Kanina po sila magsasabi kung meron pong OFW doon na namatay, sino po yung first na pupuntahan para po mapaandar yung kanyang proseso at ma-repatriate po yung kanyang remains at ma-compensate po yung kanyang pamilya?
Well, as far as OWA is concerned, dito sa
Hindi po
Pilipinas,
kailangan ng
any of the OWA regional offices, any of the DOLE offices, any of the POA offices, we are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, I am on Facebook and Twitter. So pwede kong dun through those channels. Meron kaming app din, may mobile phone app din kami, may sounding board doon. You can post messages in the mobile phone app ng OWA. Downloadable for free sa Google Play, Android.
Okay.
When it comes to workers na walang papers, for example, they're all undocumented workers, it's our jurisdiction. We have a new undersecretary, si Sara Riola. She's very active with these matters. We will find ways to bring back the body or the person himself, if he's alive. We are the Department of Foreign Affairs, Office of Migrant Workers, third floor ng DFA. Maybe I should mention my number for the moment, 0917-569-5653. Okay, you can text me if I can't answer. And for us to get things moving, tama sabi ni Admin, these documents can be liberalized in a sense na, kung anong kailangan gagawin natin.
Okay. Maganda po yung jump-off point nito ni Mean about meron tayong mga OFWs who are in very extreme circumstances. Meron pong missing, meron pong namamatay, meron din pong on death row. At karamihan po dito ay being charged for murder and for drugs. No? Usually, in the Middle East and in Malaysia. I'd like to ask the panel, how has our own government's hardline approach to the war on drugs impacted the way that we negotiate with the host governments for these OFWs?
Right. Well, we just continued what we've done for so many years on the presumption of innocence of the person na accused of drugs. May mga nuances naman yan. May mga times where the case would sort of indicate that he did it, and times that he's innocent. But we have this non-judgmental approach to it. We just send lawyers, for example, murder cases, drugs. But of course, tama rin yung ganun. We do know that some of these OFWs commit the crime, but still we help them. Wala kaming judgments on that.
But has our own government, have we seen an impact of our own government's hardline approach as impacting the way that we take care of these OFWs? The president has admitted it was a little hard for him to
Right.
negotiate for Miss Veloso, Miss Mary
For
Jane
example,
Veloso's case.
the
Yes.
case of Mary Jane Veloso, we have our best lawyers there fighting the case on the merits of the case, notwithstanding that meron na nga tayong hardline approach to drugs. In other words, we keep on going unless we're told not to do it. We presume the person has all the legal rights to be freed and keep on going.
Siguro dagdag lang, as Exec Direct Dado correctly said, they do their job. Na masigurado na may presumption of innocence, na bago, walang judgment, may due process. Due process yung inoobserbahan nila sa pagdedepend sa ating mga OFWs. Kasi hindi man mga santo yung ano. Pero bibigyan mo palagi ng benefit of the doubt. Tsaka yung kanilang environment and all that. Pero yun siguro din yung ating maganda rin na as people in government, especially in the context ngayon ng war on drugs, ang lagi kasi ang isang issue na nasa sentro ng war on drugs is the due process issue. So maganda na we are demanding due process for our people abroad na meron niyang magpapatunay mo na, patunayan mo na siya may kasalanan. Lalo na kung drug-related or kung murder cases yan, meron siya, he deserves to have a day in court. Yun ang gusto lang nating sabihin din sa ating pamahalaan ngayon na in this war against drugs, kailangan may pag-obserba ng due process. Kasi parang, paano ka na magkakaroon ng moral high ground na tayo magde-demand ng gano'n sa labas para sa ating mga kababayan na biglang pwedeng na-frame up, di ba? Kaya nga tayo naniniwala ang lakas ng ating kampanya to save the life of Mary Jane. Kahit nahulihan siya ng ilang kilo na drugs. Kasi alam natin na baka innocent siya, na-frame up lang siya. So mahalaga yun, na dapat ina-apply din natin yun dito.
Sa part ng OWA, we're worried about the families.
Yeah.
So there are around 74 Filipinos in death row, and the
Yes.
OWA has approached and has been in touch and given assistance to 35 of the families. We give scholarship and livelihood assistance to the families of the worker or OFWs in death row. This was an enactment by the OWA board in early 2016, so we're implementing that.
And on the part of Dole, of course, we have the Philippine Overseas Labor Offices with a team collaborating with OWA welfare officers as well as labor attachés.
Okay.
So all of these reach out to our OFWs overseas who are in conflict with the law. So we do not make distinctions on whether they are documented or undocumented. Basta kailangan po ng serbisyo sa mga kababayan natin and they are overseas. All of these public servants under one country team approach is extending services to all of them.
Okay, before we leave this segment on on-site, there's one more issue that I'd like to table with the panel. So, doon naman tayo sa mga kalalakihan natin who mostly work in the construction sites in the Gulf, no? Very common ang unpaid or delayed wages for construction workers. At katunayan, meron tayong na-experience na mga workers natin sa Saudi who were stranded for a very long time waiting for their wages to be paid. The president, that was one of the first things that he did, was actually to repatriate a number of them back to the Philippines. So, my first question is, meron pa tayong mga stranded po doon or waiting for their wages in the Middle East, in Saudi, and in Qatar. What are we doing for them?
First off, going back into lawyers, no? Kasi I'm a lawyer myself. Doon parating approach ko. I was there 2 weeks ago to discuss the terms for new retainers, to hire new lawyers to fight these cases, yung MMG, Saudi Bin Laden, all these things. A couple of years nang sumatakbo. And we need to have the best lawyers precisely to do the thing around out-of-the-box maneuvers with the judges and the courts, no? That kind of thing in that jurisdiction where you got to be creative and keep on pushing. And I told the contingent there, who's my batchmate and my friends there, don't give up because just don't be emotional about it. Just keep on going. Kasi yung nahihirapan yung mga tao and our guys are affected also. They're frustrated with the slow pace of litigation in the Middle East, and we told them just keep on going without being too emotionally affected by these cases. Meaning, once we have better lawyers, we will spend as much as necessary. Ando naman yung mandate ng presidente natin. He's given the funds. You were talking of 1 billion plus for assistance and legal cases. So going back to legal teams to keep on pushing for these cases, whatever it takes.
Pero on a day-to-day po, ang problema po ng mga workers natin is there are families waiting for their salaries back home. On a day-to-day basis, they need to feed themselves. They need to sustain themselves. So any amount of delayed wages, it already impacts their cash flow, already impacts their budgeting. Sila po, nasa country, at yung mga pamilya po na naghihintay. What is the safety method or the protection that we can offer them while they are demanding for their wages? Nagfa-file po sila sa court, nagko-complain sila. But that time, na wala po sila natatanggap na sweldo, what kind of protection have we given them or can we give them?
Well, it's a good question. Yung funds namin are for legal assistance lawyers per se, no? So wala kaming welfare provisions in those laws.
Well, in the case of OWA, we have spent and allocated nearly 1 billion pesos for the stranded workers. We've given them roughly around 500 million, even more, around 520 million pesos already in terms of yung relief assistance. That's 26,000 per worker. And then when they come home, and many of them have, around 7,000 since the President Duterte's pronouncement to have them all home last July 2016. And then even around 12 or 10 or 12,000 before that, we provide them livelihood. So an additional 523 million has been allocated for a 20,000 peso cash livelihood grant per worker who has come home. It used to be a 10,000 peso non-cash grant. Now it's a 20,000 peso cash grant. So nearly 1 billion pesos. And recently, the OWA board again decided to give a cash advance to those workers stranded who have had cases decided in their favor in Saudi. So we have a list of around 531 who will be given at least 10% of their awarded claims.
Okay.
And there is an additional list of around 331 already sent to us by Philippine Embassy Riyadh of those with pending claims. And the decision of the board there is to give them a maximum of 50,000 pesos each. So in other words, we've allocated quite an extensive budget just to cushion the impact for these stranded workers. Kasi thinking ng OWA board, you know, these employees of MMG, OJ, Saudi Bin Laden Group, etc., during the good times, the country benefited. Their families were safe, were nourished, were sustained, and they did not seek any help at all from the government, these 18 to 19,000 workers. Now, they all need our help. I mean, wala naman sa kanilang humingi na magsara yung kumpanya due to distress or what have you. And so, OWA has stepped in. All of them are members anyway of the OWA. And we have stepped in to provide assistance.
Siguro, ang dagdag ko lang dito, kasi for the longest time, yung Middle East ay nakaka-survive ng mga crisis. Of course, globally, may financial crisis, may pandemics. Pag tinignan mo yung deployment, hindi naman nababago. Tumataas pa nga eh. Pero nung parang ang dagdag siguro na kwento dyan sa mga stranded ngayon na workers in Saudi, at ewan ko, pag nag-prolong kasi yung crisis sa Qatar, hindi ko alam kung anong epekto rin yan doon sa ating mga workers. Pero it tells us also na itong kala mo ay hindi maapektuhan at very, buhay na buhay yung ekonomiya nila and they receive all these migrant workers. Suddenly, may problema tayo. We take pride na yung mga companies na to, they prefer Filipinos. Pero nag-crisis sila. Di siyempre, pinakamaraming may epekto, mga Pilipino. So, yung babalik tayo, yung tinanong ni Miss Melay na, ano ba yan? Sustainable ba itong ganito nating kalakaran? Na very good that always around, that may pondo pa siya na pwede niyang ibigay. And that's one very good thing that this government has done. One of the first things that the DOLE did, punta kaagad sila doon and decisively nag-assist talaga sila. Wala munang tanong-tanong ng kung ano, but immediate na relief. Kaya lamang, hanggang kailan mo yun kayang mapanindigan? So again, yun lagi lang yung gusto nating tanongin na kampante tayo kasi naayos naman natin. But who knows? Kailan yung susunod na krisis? Ay, nung isang araw, nung naggigirian ng Amerika at ang North Korea, Pati yung usapin ng nuclear attacks, nasa picture na ngayon. Wala nga sa migrants in crisis na framework So pati yun. So how ready are we? Pag may mga ganyang massive displacements of our
Ako
people
may sagot ako
overseas.
sa tanong na yan. And again, I bring in the Global Compact for Migration, yung upcoming UN discussions. We really need to take a very strong position to protect our workers. Kasi halimbawa, yung kaso ng mga stranded workers nagsara, bakit ganun ang nangyari? 2 to 3 years silang stranded, hindi sila nabayaran. Ngayon, naghihintay pa sila ng kanilang sweldo. So, dapat tayo, pumosisyon tayo sa global stage, sa multilateral or bilateral, na dapat pag may kaso na nagsara yung kumpanya, ang unang-unang bibigyan ng proteksyon, yung manggagawa, particularly migrant workers like OFWs. So halimbawa, siguro mag-put forward tayo ng panukala na dapat may financial security or insolvency insurance or what have you, unemployment insurance na dapat ibigay sa Filipino workers and migrant workers kapag nangyari yon. So sa tingin ko, ang isang solusyon dyan ay yung kampanya on a multilateral and bilateral stage na bigyan ng sapat na benepisyo ang manggagawa kapag na-distress, financial distress o nagsara yung kumpanya.
Tama yung sabi ni Admin Miss Ana. Because for example, in the case of Seafarers, under the Maritime Labor Convention, we are implementing a certain amendment of our regulations para po makover in times of insolvency yung mga employers ng ating mga international seafarers. And it might interest you to note also that at the local front, ini-expand yung ating social security law to cover for mandatory coverage of our sea-based as well as land-based workers. So in terms of social protection and policy, we're already in that area. So kasama din po siguro doon sa pagpapalakas natin ng leadership role natin at the international arena because this is a fight for the Philippines na we take on a leadership role. When we say migration management, we actually mean labor migration management. And we have a lot of experiences from the Philippines side para pakita sa buong mundo na ganito yung ginagawa natin. But we cannot make it alone. We need allies in putting forward our advocacies for the protection of not just Filipino workers, but global labor migrants.
Si Ms. Mean, marami pa ho yatang gustong sabihin.
Tulad ng sinabi namin kanina at sinabi ko na rin na very commendable talaga yung direction ng ng mga ginagawa ngayon ng OWA, ng Department of Labor, POEA. But I think what resonates with the migrant workers is yung sinabi ni President Duterte na soon itigil na natin yung migration. Umuwi na kayo. So I think we should look at the labor migration situation on a broader context. Dahil ultimately, the protection of our workers lie in their being here in the country where the laws of protection takes effect. Sa labas, we can only go into bilateral agreements which they can choose to follow or not to follow. We have international laws and conventions that are very clearly protective of migrant workers. And yet, we know that every single day, marami ang mga nabibiktima. And when we have bilateral relations or bilateral agreements, we also know na meron tayong kaunting pagtingin dyan dahil we are into a labor migration situation where deployment is competitive. So titingnan din natin kung magkano naman ano naman ang hinihingi ng ibang countries. And there are a lot of ascending countries dito sa Asia na lang. Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and so on. So doon kailangan natin tumingin. Saan ba talaga strategically ang solusyon o ang pag-handle ng labor migration ng Pilipino? I think it has to be here. While we appreciate the increase of budget, allocation, as well as personnel sa labor migration, do we really know how much naman ang allocation para gumawa ng trabaho locally? How much does a job locally cost? Magkano ba talaga ang dapat nating ilagay dito? At how is it used? So that it creates jobs. No? Ang isa sa mga problems ng mga returning migrants or even the migrants abroad is that they cannot come home because there's no job here. What will they feed their families with? Pangalawa, kung meron mang trabaho, ay napaka-temporary. Nandyan yung mga emergency employment pero it does not really last long. Then, kung meron silang savings, which we have been encouraging them to do, and we are very appreciative of government, even IOM, na ngayon, tinatawagan na yung mga migrant workers to save and invest. Dati-dati pinagtatawanan nila yung promotion and lobby namin for save and invest. But that's the only way. You cannot expect others to create a job for you. You start with your own creation of a job. Sabi namin, kung hihingi kayo sa gobyerno, meron din kayong pang-leverage with the government para magtagpo kayo sa gitna. Now, we are appreciating the 20,000 na binibigay ng OWA. And yet, ito ay hindi pa rin sumasapat to really jumpstart yung livelihood development or job generation dito. Yun ang mga problems na hinaharap ng ating mga returning migrants. Last year, meron kaming 30 workers na hiningang kami ng tulong doon sa sa Europe from Cyprus na tulungan silang mag-reintegrate, no? Na pinadala sila dito with some support para magsimula silang magkaroon ng livelihood dito. Tinulungan sila ng OWA in the various regions where they belong. Pero nung tiningnan na namin yung at the end of 1 year, kalahati, more than half of them, bumalik abroad. Dahil hindi talaga sila pwedeng magsimula dito. First, they don't have assets. Kaya naman sila nag-abroad. So yung asset building or asset acquisition is one area na kailangang tingnan. And then, ang suporta ng government, na basa ko yung sinasabi din ni Silito Habito, that our micro and small enterprises are really cash-strapped. The kind of support that the government provides is not enough in order to really make them roll and, successful sa kanilang venture. So, kailangan natin mag-think out of the box. And I think this is where OWA is already on that mode. Na thinking out of the box, paano ba tayo magbigay ng tulong? Isa sa mga pinopropose namin noong una pa is a social venture capital. OWA has funds na nanggagaling sa migrant workers. Hindi ba ito pwedeng gamitin para tingnan and then gumawa ng ilang pilot na isuporta sa mga negosyo ng mga migrant workers sa halip na ilagak lahat sa bangko at doon magpautang ng mga ng pangkapital ng mga migrants. Napakahirap sa migrants, may kaunting savings, uuwi, mangungutang sa bangko. Ito yung interest rate. Pero startups yan eh. Ano ang chances nila as a startup in an economy where ang mga disadvantages is stacked against startups, stacked against small? Paano ba talaga nan tinitingnan ng ating gobyerno? So I would like to see na broader than the attached agencies of the DOLE and OWA. Saan ba talaga lulugar tayo dyan? Why is it that DTI, we do not include them in this kind of dialogue? Why is it that DA, where migrant workers come from rural areas, nasaan ba sila dito? Paano ba natin pagtulungan ito? Mahaba na yung sinasabi ko, but this is the challenge that we have to face.
There's just one additional information that I'd like to put forward. Ms. Mean is also actually on the right track when she says that all of the elements in the local economy should be spurred so that when the OFWs return, there's a sufficient environment for them to thrive. So, yun pong sa DOLE and DTI, there's a trabaho, negosyo, kabuhayan link up with each other for them to be able to precisely gain access to productive resources so that those who are interested in building up their capital as well as their technologies in putting up startups would be enhanced. So if one coming from the OWA and one and one other service converging with a single enterprise at the community level, then you have a good mix of programs and services. Siguro we're good at putting up all of these programs and services, and one vital thing to make this a success siguro is to make everybody know, let everybody know that these things are in place, these things are accessible. And ito yung, I guess, spirit nung leadership ngayon, yung people-to-people connection at governance as well as at services level. So gusto direct na pagpo-provide ng services. So I think we're at a right time to do all of these things, to share valuable information. So,
I want to ask Ms. Meando, ano ba yung profile po ng returning OFW? So we can also tailor these programs that we're talking about to their needs. Bukod po sa sinasabi niyong problema nila about reintegration, ano po yung profile natin? Are they already old or are they approaching retirement? Ano po ba yung situation?
Medyo varied yung,
Okay, varied
yung
talaga.
picture ng mga migrants, no? The field is
Okay.
mixed. But at certain points, for example, in 2008, karamihan ng umuwi ay yung naapektuhan nung global downturn, no? Yung economic meltdown doon sa At ang nangyari sa kanila ay either nanatili sila sa Taiwan halimbawa or sa Dubai, nanatili sila sa kanilang mga kumpanya, and the companies went on a slowdown. So they worked 2 days a week. Yung iba talagang pinauwi. At yung may mga savings, umuwi rito. We have one who went back to Kadingilan sa Bukidnon. Through the years, nakapag-save siya. Meron siyang parang 12 hectares ngayon na lupa. At ito, nagkukumahog manghingi ng tulong sa DA. Pero yun, sabi niya, mabuti na lang nakapag-save ako. But those who were not able to save, they had to borrow money again at bumalik mag-overseas. So nag-try siya sa Dubai na na-dengue siya doon. So nawala yung pera niya. So nangutang siya ulit at ngayon nagtatrabaho siya ng papuntang Canada. So that's one picture. The other picture is earlier in the or even now, no, the conflict halimbawa in the Middle East,
yeah.
no? Na yung mga nasa Libya, ang dilemma nila is we'll try to stay here and be safe. Kasi 3 times o 4 times ang sinusweldo sa kanila ng kanilang kumpanya. They work as nurses, no?
Yeah.
Marami dito sa kanila mga taga Marawi. So nandun sila. Pero talagang umigting na yung yung labanan, they also had to come back. So pagbalik nila dito, yun ang tanong nila. What do we do now? So nagnegosyo sila. Went to Marawi or came to Manila, nagnegosyo sila, pero they needed support. So ang ginawa nila, nagpadala sila ng kanilang kamag-anak doon sa Saudi Arabia para tumulong sa kanilang magkapital sa kanilang negosyo.
Naging cycle
Oo,
na po.
nagiging cycle, hindi sila makaalis sa migration, migration trap. Ngayon, ang tanong namin is, wipe out yung kanilang negosyo sa Marawi. So, how else can they
I think yung yung
put up?
grupo ng mga naapektuhan na katulad ng Marawi, ibang subset
Yes.
yun. But I think mauuwi yan sa mga, sabi nga ni Ms. Mean, yung mga napilitan umuwi, yung mga stranded, yung mga distressed, tumakbo sa shelter, sa bahay kalinga at kailangan umuwi, mga domestic workers. And then merong grupo na yung may plano na, like a group of safety engineers or civil engineers in Damam who plan to do a solar panel project. Yan yung ibang klase ng worker na gustong mag-invest, mag-reintegrate dito na may plano na. And then all the rest could be somewhere in between. Ngayon, ang approach namin sa OWA, dapat holistic. Una, nag-i-embark kami ngayon at palalawigin namin sa mandatory financial literacy. Kasi, una, yan ay mandato ni Pangulo at ni Secretary Bello. At pangalawa, nakikita namin na yung financial literacy is key. Reintegration begins even before one leaves the country. Okay? An OFW who leaves the country should already have reintegration or a game plan to reintegrate in mind. So, ang gagawin namin, ang plano namin, we'll have the National Reintegration Center for OFWs. We will fine-tune all our financial literacy modules. Kausap din namin ang Asian Institute for Management. But also, we will talk to communications groups kasi ayaw namin nung highfalutin macroeconomic, School of Economics kind of mandatory financial literacy. We want, simple slogans or terminology na maintindihan at makakonect sa lahat. Kumbaga parang duck cover hold, di ba? Kung earthquake drill. Ano ba yan? Ano ba ang mensahe para maging financially literate? What are the 3 big words or 4 words that you should know? Sabi nila, plan, save, invest. But we want to talk to communication groups and actually validate whether this is an effective communication slogan or mantra. The next thing that we want to do is to talk to relevant government agencies. We're doing this now. DTI is helping us with the entrepreneurship seminars and mentoring. DA, Sec Bello and Sec Piñol have been talking about how we can successfully firm up a program for agriculture and reintegration of OFWs in agriculture. The idea of forming OFWs into agricultural cooperatives has come up, and we will work with DA on this matter. Mentoring is also key. So DTI will bring in and DA will bring in the private sector groups that can mentor those who already have been given businesses. But in terms of yung core programs namin ng reintegration, what we've done thus far, I've already mentioned this, is to increase the basic Balik Pilipinas, Balik Hanap Buhay grant from 10,000 non-cash to 20,000 cash. This year alone, we have given 6,009 beneficiaries the grant, the livelihood grant. Last year, there were 3,888 beneficiaries. So at mid-year point alone, this year, we've already surpassed the 2016 record. So things are looking up. We're hoping to keep up this momentum para mas marami makinabang dun sa livelihood grant. At the other side, we have a partnership with Land Bank for a 100,000 to 1 million, it's at 100,000 to 2 million peso reintegration facility. But this is a loan window with 7.5% per annum interest with a collateral requirement. So far, 1,500, this is a 4-5-year project, and 1,575 have benefited from this. It's not much in terms of volume. That is what, but that amounts to around 1.3 billion pesos. Ang common range ay around 1 million to 1.5 million in terms of the grant. So medyo substantial, no? But we are sitting down with Land Bank right now and trying to craft a micro-lending window from around 50,000 to 300,000, gitna. Kasi meron kang 20,000 grant, meron kang 2 million loan. So gusto namin yung gitna na loan facility, 50 to 300,000, that is collateral free. So we're working on this hopefully by the end of this year. Magkaroon tayo ng facility where it is easier for returning OFWs to secure a loan and start up their business.
My question there is, and we have a question, the same question from the audience, is these proposals that you've put forward are all with the mind frame na yung OFW po na babalik ay magninegosyo. But not everyone may have that entrepreneurial mindset or even that wish to go into business. What do we have for them in terms of other choices?
Well, let me just quickly get into that. The National Reintegration, yesterday I was in a workshop with the National Reintegration Center for OFWs. Actually, one overlooked function of the NRCO in the law is that they are actually or should be a promotional house for local employment. Kasi NRCO so far puro livelihood. But you're right, we need to look at ways in which we could retool and reskill returning OFWs in case they would want to venture into employment, especially local employment. So we will harness yung aming, meron kasing skills for employment program ang OWA. It's a 14,500 peso grant to anyone who wants to, OFW or OFW dependent, who wants to train. So we will link this SESP, as we call it, the Skills Training Grant, with our reintegration program. So that naka-align yung skills grant doon sa prospective employment plans ng isang returning OFW. So there's an existing skills training grant that we will now carefully align with reintegration, because you're right, Anna, it's not just livelihood, but also employment.
Ms. Ann.
Yes.
One of my most favorite programs ng National Reintegration Center for OFWs is the SPIMS. Sa
SPIMS.
Pilipinas, ikaw ang ma'am, sir.
Yes.
This is for those who are licensed teachers
Yes.
or below license.
Yeah.
The National Reintegration Center hooks up with review centers and refresher course centers, just so our teachers could get their licenses, and then when they pass it, they connect them to public schools that have assured plantilla positions, entry-level positions for our teachers. So you're right. Some of them might want to come back home to practice their professions, and the NRCO is starting
That's right.
up with the teachers. So paborito ko yun sa
And
mga
I remember,
programa nila.
if I remember right, SPIMS was also, it was sparked by our K-12 program. We had a huge
Yes.
need
Yes,
to
that's
fill no,
right.
in terms of additional
Yes.
teachers for K-12.
So, yeah.
Miss Ellen, you wanted to say something po?
Yeah, kasi nga nitong 2 days ago, nagkaroon ng National Reintegration Summit. At may dalawang grupo ng mga OFs na I think inspiring yung kanilang mga stories na on their own, they were successful in coming back and reintegrating. Nakapag-generate pa sila ng mga trabaho for other people. So yung isa doon, si Mirna Padilla. Tsaka yung isa din, yung Global Filipino Investors. It's very interesting kasi yung mga pinag-area ng kanilang trabaho, hindi yun yung traditional. And I think very inspiring na marami ka talaga palang makukuha na ideya para mag-reintegrate. Kaya lang, siguro yung isa lang point, and siguro connected dun sa sinasabi ni Director Lev, particularly for our women. Kasi ang profile ng ating women who mostly end up as domestic workers, mga matataas ang educational attainment. Pero dahil nga dito pa lang sa trabaho, yung in terms of job opportunities in the country ay meron ding gender gap. So, doon sila pupunta sa where the jobs are. So, siguro yung pagdating sa job creation uli, pagbalik man or even to discourage them from even going abroad, bigyan natin ng consideration talaga yung kababaihan. Kasi yan yung palaging naiiwan din, even dito sa generation ng local employment. The second point is, syempre, ang isa ring dahilan ng pag-abroad ay yung mababa yung sweldo. So hindi ko alam sa ating mga manggagawang lokal, kasi ang panawagan nila at least 16,000 a month na monthly salary kung yun ba'y nakakabuhay na sweldo. But that's the other thing that kailangan nating ma-address dito sa ating bayan.
So we talked about retirement here or coming back to work here. Pero meron yung tanong ang isa natin OFW, no? Ang tanong naman niya, it's about medical benefits. So, meron hubang mga benepisyo daw po ang gobyerno para ma-encourage ang mga OFWs na umuwi. Benepisyo po tungkol sa retirement at sa medical benefits. I think we've covered the stuff on retirement. But that's another concern, no? When all of us will get old, will need medical care. What kind of support system or social protection do we have for our OFs when it comes to that?
Well, OFWs are supposed to be members of PhilHealth. So they're supposed to be protected in terms of yung medical and hospitalization assistance for themselves and their dependents. Sa side ng OWA, as long as they are OFWs, there are death and disability entitlements. We also have what we call an OWA PhilHealth Med Plus program, where we allocate or we provide an additional sum from the OWA side, 50,000 pesos, for those with so-called dreaded diseases. There's a list of dreaded diseases by the PhilHealth. These days, we're trying to streamline the process kasi may mga complaints na only around 20 have benefited from this very, very low volume. And the big reason is, kailangan muna silang mag-avail sa PhilHealth at lumabas sa website ng PhilHealth bago namin bigyan ng pera. So, we're trying to streamline the process. We're talking to PhilHealth with the possibility na as long as nasa list niya ng dreaded disease, whether or not nag-avail na siya ng PhilHealth benefit, we'll give that OFW, entitled OFW, 50,000. Now, let me say something about retirement. Kasi admittedly, walang retirement benefit sa OWA. The closest thing that we have to retirement is the rebate system.
Rebate system.
That we propose to launch in the coming months. It's mandated by the law for members who have been 10 years, members for 10 years or more have not availed of any of the programs or services. It's not a retirement pension scheme. Okay? Kaya natatawa si Ellen. Kaya comedy para kay Ellen. But nevertheless, it's a rebate system mandated by law, and OFWs 10 years or more members have been waiting for this. Also, I know in the works the plan to make OFWs members of SSS, mandatory members of SSS, because in our system of social insurance, it's SSS that is the closest that can provide a retirement or pension package for OFWs. So I know that is in the works. Seafarers, overseas seafarers are mandated to be covered, but not land-based workers. So I know they are now passing a bill or enacting a policy or law to this effect.
Okay. We need to go to the long-term solutions part of the discussion already. And I think I'll take off from Ms. Mean. Maybe you can share with us the best practices na nakita niyo po sa Unlad Kabayan in being able to start or reintegrate our OFWs. How can we learn from these best practices and segue to long-term solutions to the problems that drive labor migration?
That's really a big challenge because in fact we have migrant workers and groups of migrant workers who have come home and started their own businesses. In fact, the labor studies of the Department of Labor has gone to it before to study what were the good practices. It has been, these businesses have been sustainable, an integrated farm, investment in a rice mill, and it's very sad to say that they have been applying for support from OWA. Hanggang ngayon, hindi pa po sila nakakatanggap. Ilang taon na itong, nung dalawang OWA heads na ang kanilang dinaanan. No? From Taiwan, ito sila. So ngayon, nagtatry ulit sila. They have approached the regional office doon sa Caraga for DOLE assistance. Ganon din yung sa Davao. May tanong ako, pero before I raise the question, yung good practices is that, one, they are able to get trusted workers or trusted na magmamanage before sila uwi. Ngayon, ito ay isang napakalaking problema ng iba pang gustong magnegosyo o gustong gumawa ng livelihood nila. Nahihirapang kumuha ng mga trustworthy na mga manggagawa. So yung tanong talaga, saan ba tayo maghahanap ng mga trustworthy? Family members ay hindi rin mapagkatiwalaan po.
Ang family members?
Yeah. Madalas yan na ang sagot ay, noong nandun ka sa abroad o nung papunta ka pa lang, kami ang sumuporta sa'yo. Ngayon, hahanapan mo kami. So yung mga ganyan na dialogue, madalas yan. Then yung very competitive na sa tingin nila is hostile yung business environment. Ang hirap ng mga proseso ng halimbawa, yung rice mill, kikipag-usap sa NFA. Kung ang daming mga requisitos na kailangan nilang daanan.
Sa bureaucracy na po.
Sa bureaucracy. Yung kailangan nilang mag-accredit doon sa local government, nagkataon na hindi sila magkapartido, nagkakaproblema sila sa mga ganon. So, very practical ang mga problems sila at the local level. Ang magandang practice nila doon ay nagpi-persist sila. They persist in making their business viable and they find ways and means to address the kind of problems that they have. Then one other practice is that, good practice, is that tinutulungan sila ng iba pang migrant workers. So, sasabihin nila na, okay, so gumaganda ang negosyo mo, maybe I can, I can invest in your business. So, natutulungan silang i-augment ang kanilang capital sa halip na tumakbo sila sa kasi ang rural bank is almost the same effective rate ng interest sa microfinance. At they found out that microfinance is not really that helpful in overcoming their capital needs. Kasi ang taas ng kanilang interest rates. Kaya nga, yung sinasabi namin parati sa government and local government also, na please, wag na yung microfinance, wag na yung microlending. Yung microlending, okay lang yan pagkasapin-sapin lang ang iyong negosyo. O gusto mo na mga palitaw dyan sa tabi-tabi, okay yon. But if you really want to go into an enduring, competitive business, you have to go for bigger capital. So, yun yung mga lessons na nakuha nila sa kanilang negosyo.
Maganda na itong segue dito sa last portion natin on long-term solutions. Where are we in thinking about long-term solutions to the issues that drive labor migration? The President has said, may bold promise siya na 10 years, di nyo na kailangan umalis.
Pero ang tanong ko kasi, Ms. Ana, is at the policy level and at the level of the national bodies, napakaganda po ng mga programs and mga panukala. Ang tanong dito is, how is this translated doon sa families ng migrant workers on a very practical level, doon talaga sa the people on the road, the people on the ground. Paano ba ito magta-translate? Kasi okay yung halimbawa yung kay Charlie May na kaso, I can then bring it to the OWA of Region 11, although balik na kami ng balik doon na hindi pa rin na-actionan. So, ano ba ang mga mechanisms so that it gets to the ground and it gets to the people concerned and those people who should be able to access them? Kasi magaganda yung
Hans,
yung
you
mga
wanna
sinabi ni
take that?
Administrator Hans.
Do you want to add something, Ms. E, before we
Siguro
ask Hans
sa
to
bahagi
answer?
namin, we always ask the question, ano ba yung long-term solution? Kasi ang gusto natin, may option ang manggagawa natin to stay or not, or to go abroad. Kasi right now, at ito inadmit naman ng ating gobyerno, kaya nga nasa number 4 ito sa 8-point agenda ni Secretary Bello to create decent job opportunities in the country so that migration will not be out of compulsion. Okay. Sinabi na rin yan ng mga previous administration. Pero I think it's very serious. So we do not say stop migration. Pero bigyan mo ng option na nandito ang disenteng trabaho para sa mga kalalakihan at mga kababaihan. First point. Second point is, for those who will go abroad, syempre, hindi natin iiwanan yung protection commitment. Pero at the same time, yun nga, ang sinasabi ko rin talaga, at ito ay para sa mas meron kang perspective ng international community, taking responsibility or shared responsibility as well. And that's why it's also very important, paano yung ating kondukta ng international relations natin. Hindi po pwedeng lagi lang tayong siga. We need the cooperation of the international community and the countries of destination in particular. The third point is, we need to change the narrative of labor migration. Hindi po pwedeng laging perspektibo na kawawa naman kayo, wala kayong trabaho, kaya doon. I think we need to hear more employers saying, we value the work of Filipino migrants. Kaya nga nung isang araw ay blockbuster yung isang dumaki na siya na yung Qatari, di ba? Dumaki na siya at hinanap niya yung kanyang Pilipinong nag-alaga sa kanya.
We keep on hearing
at
lots of stories
naiiyak
like
siya.
that. Yeah.
So we need to hear more of those stories kung paano binavalue yung ating mga migrant workers. Engineer man yan o domestic worker, meron niyang mahalagang trabahong ginagawa. We need to change the narrative. And I think yan yung bahagi ng challenge dito sa sinasabing Global Compact on Migration.
Alan, what I'm hearing from you when you say change the narrative is to really empower also the worker. That my work is valuable. And from that point, and to be able to negotiate a lot of his own rights and protections for himself with this kind of mindset.
Na hindi lang sila victims at they are not just clients.
And there's so many
but
stories.
they should be empowered to be part of the planning, to be part of the implementation of all these. Kasi,
Dadagdag ko lang maraming stories na ganyan. No? Anthony Bourdain has a yaya who's Filipina. And let's not forget Prince William. Sorry, Prince Harry and William. Their nanny was Filipina.
Yeah, for the DFA naman, based on what everyone has been saying, we do have this belief that migration will continue, no? somehow, and precisely as a matter of choice. And while that happens, we have our aim is to have diplomats all over the world just negotiating in different countries, in different jurisdictions, and lawyers on the ground level pushing for human rights. And precisely based on our laws to certify which countries should have enough deployment or to be deployed to. If there are no laws protecting these workers in these countries, then the ambassador in the post can certify or recommend that this country might not be the best place to send our workers to. So it's kind of a lesser, longer term than what they have. But we're committed to this diplomacy on the top level and lawyers on the ground to fight our cases.
To evaluate the host countries as
And to
well.
evaluate the host countries as well
Yes.
by the ambassador himself who has the power to do that.
Okay.
I'll speak of policy framework. I would just want to promote that there's a Philippine Development Plan, the 2017 to 2022, that puts together nicely the nexus between migration and development, and all of the factors that need to be acted upon in the PDP are there. Migration and development, for example, pre-deployment, on-site, return. All of these things are in the medium-term development plan of the Philippines, and it's a signal for us that we are gearing towards not only temporary labor migration, but plotting actually our development, maximizing the benefits of labor migration and feeding it into the national mainstream of development. So meron na po tayong pag-amba doon sa direction na yon. So in the medium term, it's already in our plans, the strategies as well as the specifics, activities and programs that we are doing under the PDP. So siguro magandang paggayak na yon towards a long-term vision for all of us to, of course, reap the benefits of migration and the vision, of course, of a Philippines that has reaped the fruits of labor migration.
We always talk about from diaspora to development,
Yes.
right? That's another mind frame that we've talked about, and how we can use the OFW remittances for our own national development plans. Sir Hans, would
Yes.
you like to add
So
also?
I think we should begin with the end result, with the end game, which is the successful reintegration of an OFW and his or her family. I think the role of government should be to empower, to inspire workers, to make sure they're amply protected, and to make sure they have access to government resources and the ability to tap those resources and set up and successfully reintegrate. So this means na sa simula pa lang, sa recruitment stage pa lang, meron ng proper skills, empowered siya with all the knowledge, financially literate siya, at tanggap niya kung bakit siya nag-abroad at kung bakit kailangan niyang bumanumbalik at mag-reintegrate. And then of course, yung role ng government sa on-site na to ensure na well-protected ang worker, meron siyang matatakbuhan pag kailangan niya ng tulong. And then doon na sa pagdating sa reintegration side, ay may sufficient access at may government resources to prepare and inspire that person to reconnect, to bridge himself or herself once again into the mainstream of Philippine society. The government should be there and effectively govern all throughout that entire process. There are local and private actors. LGUs have a role to play, not just national government, but just the same, the government should be there to effectively empower and inspire our workers.
I have a question, and this is something that Ms. Melay also brought up in her presentation. We talk about wanting to bring home our OFWs and to move from migration by necessity to migration by choice. But the other question is, what are we doing in terms of job creation? If we bring them back home, there's 25 billion US dollars that we're dependent on in terms of remittances. Can we as a country kind of lessen our dependency on that? And what are we doing in terms of job creation also to defray
What I
that?
can say about that is in the area of livelihood, not the employment side, but on the livelihood side, the government's reintegration program should be connected to the general economic frame. The key employment generating activities or areas where we can excel. So for instance, we will not encourage an OFW who comes home to get into a business that won't be successful in the local or international market anyway. So that we will have to make sure na lahat ng businesses na nasa menu ng ating options for the workers, aligned with DTI, aligned with DA and NEDA and DOLE, ay dapat yun merong successful, more chances of success ng workers, ng reintegrating workers are very high. So, for me, yung reintegration should not be taken in a vacuum or in isolation, but should be plugged into national economic strategies.
Yes, okay. We have to, I'll go to Ellen and Miss Man, and then we have to open the floor to the questions to the audience.
Siguro, briefly, for sure, yung 10 million or so natin na mga overseas Filipinos, hindi naman yung nauuwi ng lahat, di ba? Meron yung matitira talaga. Kasi hindi naman natin gustong umuwi kayo na i-compel talaga na pupersahin mong umuwi. Pero I think in the long run, kung yung magkakatotoo, yung ambition 2040, hindi naman maghintay hanggang 2040, pero yung mga plano, lalo ngayon sa administration ni Admin Hans, sa OWA, yung mga sa reintegration at paano rin mapapatupad yung paborito mong mga provisions na Migration for Development sa NEDA. May ganun ang kombinasyon. Hindi mo titingnan kaagad abruptly, wala ka ng 26 billion US dollars. Kasi at the same time, di ba, nabanggit din ni Ms. Melay kanina, yung social cost. Is it worth it? At the end of the day, meron ka rin ganung pag-iisip Nabanggit pa, in relation to drugs, 25% of the migrant children are hooked on drugs. That's very disturbing. So kung yung mga nanay na yun siguro uuwi, meron niyang ma-obsess. So yung 26 billion mo, pwede mo yang matingnan na hindi yan nawala, na dahil nawalan, umuwi sila, pero meron ka rin gain dito. At hopefully, we have to do our homework here para maging kaaya-ayang hindi na sila aalis
But
dito.
everything needs to be taken in parallel, no?
Oo, hindi mo
Everything,
pwedeng,
because there's so
ano.
many interlocking
Oo.
pieces with of migration. And just as we've covered here, it's not just about the worker, it's about his family as well, and then the dependencies of the country on our huge labor force abroad. Ms. Mean po.
Kung sa strategy natin titingnan, tama yung inaano ng NEDA, ang tanong kasi is, what exactly is our economic development policy? Yun din ang tinatanong ng marami. Kasi ang policy talaga natin sa labor migration is that internally driven ang development. It should not be a development that is dependent on the growth and jobs of other countries. It should be dito sa atin nagsisimula yung mga trabaho. On the other hand, ang direksyon ng ating ekonomiya is that nandun tayo sa consumption-led growth, which is what? Dependent sa remittances. Kasi pag walang remittances, walang pambibili dito sa mga malls. Walang
Consumer demand.
gagamit ng mga telepono na pagkagaganda, yung mga tagtarad tawag namin doon. Yung, anong tawag
iPad,
doon?
mga tablet po.
Yung mga tablet. Nandoon yung pumupunta yung pera ng ng mga Pinoy. It is not creating products. One of the books I think that has been coming out and very interesting is that yung critique nila sa American economy na it is growing and many other countries are growing out of financial services na what do they call it? Virtual? Hindi na siya
Shared economy. Are you talking about Uber and stuff like that?
Hindi, yung mga virtual financial instruments na kumikita na wala namang real products na lumalabas. Ang sabi ni President Duterte is we should be growing towards productive, creative manufacturing. Kasi ito yung pinakamaliit natin na sektor ng ekonomiya. Now, if we don't talk about the basics and the nitty-gritty of economics, we will just be talking about come home Filipinos from abroad. Pero wala tayong konkretong ino-offer even at the policy level at saka sa ating operational strategies. Magaganda yung sabi nga nung isang foreigner alam mo, mga Pilipino, mahusay silang gumawa ng slogans. Mayroon kang mga agripreneur. Mga ganyan na mga mga balik manggagawa, mga ano yung mais at saka yung ganito. These are good slogans, but they have to be translated into,
Action steps.
actionable things na kailangan magawa ng paraan. So, ito yung
Okay. We'll take questions now from the audience. There's one very pressing one. It keeps on appearing on my screen. Ano daw po ang balita sa OFW card? Can they really explain what it's for? And will it really be free?
I don't.
Right now, ang latest word and pronouncement ni Sec Bello ay yung guidelines are still being formulated. There have been a series of consultations ng stakeholders, and let's just wait until the guidelines are formulated in regard to the ID.
So in the meantime, we still have what's in place, the OEC,
Yes.
with exemptions.
Yes, the exemption system. How many have been? I think the last word I had is over 1 million OFWs, balik manggagawa, have benefited from this exemption facility. So maybe it's just had some negative criticisms, pero marami na rin nakinabang dun sa exemption, OEC
Alright.
exemption.
Thank you, Sir Hans. We'll take questions now from the audience. Are there any questions that we have? Meron pa hong mga questions dito. One is, nag-DM, no? Sa mga domestic workers na may mga problema sa kanilang mga employer, is there another option aside from encouraging them to go back home without settlement or fighting for their issue? We think that sending them back home without confronting their issue is not the solution. Kasi na may mihasa ang mga agencies at ang mga employers.
Yes, I think I can answer that. We have, again, teams in the embassies and the labor offices. We have tie-ups with the Polo office, labor attaché, for example. Pag yung problema is with a contract per se, and that's the labor attaché who goes there to litigate. If the person is abused or there's a crime committed against a person, that's when the consul, the conscience goes there with these lawyers to litigate. So, well, it's a very staggered measure that we have on the ground, but it works in terms of, just securing the person immediately upon the distress call, for example.
Okay.
Of course, meron po. Kapag documented yung domestic worker natin and uuwi siya, pwedeng panagutin yung private recruitment agency dun sa mga kakulangan ng kanyang employer at dito na isi-settle yung lahat. At kung hindi man maayos at ituloy ng ating domestic worker yung kanyang complaints laban sa kanyang employers, yun pong recruiter ang mananagot dito. So it's either they get their licenses suspended or canceled. So there are several recourses. At kung ang yung domestic worker naman po natin ay gustong magtrabaho sa iba pang lugar, she can be aided by our government to retool, get certified for another skill, and get referrals for other jobs. So,
Okay.
Sa bahagi ng gobyerno, I think very serious yung effort at intention na talaga mabigyan ng konkretong protection ng mga domestic workers. So meron niyang programa, meron niyang mga patakaran. Kailangan lang matanggal natin yung culture of fear. For example, na pag nagreklamo ka o tumindig ka sa tama o kaya on the basis of your contract, syempre magagalit yung employer kung ano-anong gagawin mo. So ang ano lang doon, lagi din namin itong sinasabi, maski nga yung mag-abroad pa lang, wag kang kung may problema ka sa recruiter mo, pumunta ka sa iba. Kasi marami namang options ka na pupuntahan. But in the same vein, pag nandun ka na sa country of destination, konti lang yung polo natin, pero meron namang nagko-complement yun kasi may presensya naman ng embahada. Very basic. Alamin mo muna yung contact, how do you get help kung meron kang problema. Kung hindi ba rin natitinag, kasi kailangan dito, bibong-bibo talaga at very proactive ang ating mga tao sa post. Kasi that's the only way. Gusto talaga nating i-test yung redress mechanism, for example, in the country of destination.
Yeah.
Kasi ayaw naman natin na lagi na lang dito natin kukuhanin yung solusyon. Dapat talaga, eventually, magde-develop na sila ng epektibong redress mechanism doon. Makakatulong ng malaki. Yung ating mga embahada, polo, at ang POEA. Pagka yan sila ay mga agency hired. So wag po kayong magsawa at tiwalaan lang ninyo yung ating mga tao sa on-site. nagagawin nila yung kanilang trabaho.
May fallacy kasi. There's a fallacy that the employer is so powerful or formidable.
Yeah.
May weak point yan eh. And the job of the embassy is to look for this weak point of this person, this employer, or the agency or whatever, para ma-take advantage natin when we file our legal cases. So we can be stronger, sabi nga ni ma'am, in our feelings, no? To litigate and to see that they're only human, no? These employers are, they have weak points.
Siguro isang maikling kwento, yung mga nagra-run away natin sa mga Gulf. Hindi naman nila gustong mag-run away. But that's the only way na magsabi silang, ayaw ko nang ako'y inaabuso mo at pinagsasamantalan, ina-exploit. And ang statement nila doon sa mga shelters natin, nung isang dialogue natin sa Qatar, sabi nila, di po ba, hindi lang naman kami nagpunta rito para ibugbugin ng aming ibugbugin ng employer namin. Gusto lang po naman namin ay disenteng trabaho. So alam nila yun eh. So kaya lang kailangan mas marami tayong ganun na kailangan may konting ayuda sa ating mga representatives
I think
of
one
government.
solution is yung sa labor case handling on site. Kasi yung legal assistance fund that used to just cover criminal cases can now be tapped under the DFA to handle labor cases, including cases where Filipinos complain, hindi lang yung as defendants. So, kailangan paigtingin yung legal assistance fund that caters to labor cases kasi the most common weakness natin on our side is labor cases become many and then pag nagpupunta sa hearing yung worker, kailangan ng kasama at kailangan ng kasama na marunong mag-Arabic. So, we need to address that and OWA and DFA have been having talks to bolster or support yung legal assistance fund mechanism insofar as labor cases are concerned. Because yung sinasabi ni Ellen, tama yun eh. Let's tap the host government in terms of resolving the labor cases. But having said that, kung gustong umuwi na nung tao, nung worker, ay dapat pauwiin na rin siya. Kasi marami ding workers ang misinformed and are told, especially by the recruiters here, na dapat doon muna siya at doon niya singilin sa foreign recruiter or employer yung bayad. Which is not true kasi may joint and several liability at pwede rin habulin yung recruiter dito. So, it works, it's a careful balance between giving the host government mechanism, dispute settlement mechanism a chance, but on the other hand, not to tie down our worker in such a way na kahit gusto mo niyang umuwi, ay hindi pa siya makauwi dahil dito naman, meron ding redress dito against the recruiter.
Okay.
And the funds are being, yung guidelines, the funds are being expanded to make them more liberal. We finished the guidelines last month. It's now with the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Secretary Alan Cayetano, and it's very liberal in the sense that a lot of the very normal or even extreme cases are covered by the new guidelines.
Yung isang
Doing
billion
labor
po
cases.
yun, na in-announce ni Presidente.
1 billion is for the ATN, which is nationals, when it comes to repatriation or...
DFA.
And the other 200 million is for the lawyers per se, no? So iba yun, but it's all in one package by the President. And we expanded the guidelines to make it very easy to use and to be given to our OFWs.
Okay, and that's the 1 billion that we were talking about that the president allocated. All right, thank you to everyone on this panel. We have had such a wonderful and very engaging, lively discussion. Dami pong tanungan, marami rin pong mga panukala at iba-ibang proposals. I'm just going to run through what we had talked about. We went through the migration cycle when we tackled the different issues for today, which was about streamlining policies, streamlining operations. We saw many improvements already on the ground in terms of just making things easier sa pag-apply, sa bureaucracy, sa paperwork. But we also saw our laws are there, but we need to ramp up our way of implementing them, our way of monitoring them, and being proactive also so that it's not so dependent on complaints and just only triggered by grievances. We have also talked about how we can better negotiate with our host governments, especially after 40 years of migration. We've seen where the Filipino worker is looked at, as exceptional. And so there's an avenue for us to negotiate with host governments so that we have an equal and shared responsibility in the protection of our labor migrants. At maganda rin huy na sabi natin dito, which I really liked, was empowering ourselves with this mindset, changing the narrative of the OFW as an empowered, valuable, skilled worker who has a lot to offer in terms of the workforce. At meron po tayong, yung huli natin pinag-usapan was the social welfare solutions.
majority of our OFWs, about 60% are in the Middle East. Hindi po sila makakapag-retire doon. Hindi po sila makakakuha ng citizenship doon. Hindi po nila madadalang kanilang mga pamilya doon. Uuwi po yung mga yan. So we are now looking at how do we protect and take care of them once they come home. We talked about retooling them with other skills para naman kung hindi nila gusto magnegosyo, gusto nila mamasukan, meron din silang ganong option. We talked about the need to better integrate yung interlocking government offices. Hindi lang po yung mga nandito na concerned directly sa labor exportation or labor migration natin, but also the DTI. We heard also the need to integrate the Department of Agriculture. At I also heard a lot of things about creative solutions, looking at alternative industries where we could be good at as well. Marami na hong nagagawa ang technology, marami na hong new businesses and industries that are being spurred by technology. And lastly, I think the bottom line was really giving our OFWs, our fellow Filipinos, a lot of choices so that we can look at labor migration as a path of choice rather than as a necessity. And we can do it we have long-term solutions to look to. We still need, I think from this discussion, that needs to be worked on still with concrete plans. We've heard about nice pronouncements of no longer needing to work abroad. Now what we're looking for are the policies, right? The policies and the concrete action steps so that we'll meet this goal. Thank you to everyone who is watching this program. You can tweet us at OFW Rights for additional comments and questions. Thank you to the panel for joining us. Marami pong salamat.
Thank you.